Boston Medical Center's Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett joins us for a deep dive into the pros and cons and costs of the Ozempic era. Then she'll stick around when we open phone and text lines to talk to you and answer all your questions about GLP-1s, and if you're using it, how's it going? Then Princeton University professor Khalil Gibran on the shutting down of speech on campuses all over the country.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we get huge feedback on this segment, so we're playing it again. It's our conversation with former DC Metropolitan Police officer Michael Fanone, who nearly died after the January 6th attack on the Capitol. And Spirit Airlines is gone. How are you planning to afford travel this summer and to endure? Weigh in next. It's all ahead. BPR.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. U.S. officials say 17 Americans and one Briton who were aboard the cruise ship where the rare hantavirus was found have now arrived in the U.S. Most of these people are in Omaha, Nebraska. Some will go into quarantine at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Admiral Brian Christine is the Assistant Secretary for Health at the Department of Health and Human Services. He says there is very little risk of the hantavirus spreading.
Let me be crystal clear. The risk of hantavirus to the general public remains very, very low. The Andes variant of this virus does not spread easily, and it requires prolonged close contact with someone who is already symptomatic.
At least 2 former passengers were moved to Atlanta. Their conditions are not known. The man accused of trying to assassinate President Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner has pleaded not guilty to the charges. Cole Allen entered his plea at a hearing in federal court this morning. NPR's Ryan Lucas reports.
The 31-year-old faces 4 counts, including trying to assassinate the President of the United States. At his arraignment, Allen was in shackles and an orange prison outfit. He stood at the podium as his attorneys entered a plea of not guilty to the charges against him. Prosecutors say Allen traveled from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. by train and booked a room at the same hotel where the White House Correspondents' Dinner takes place. Allen then allegedly tried to storm the dinner with a shotgun and other weapons, but was stopped at the outer perimeter by Secret Service agents. He is scheduled to be back in court in late June. Ryan Lucas, NPR News, Washington.
President Trump has rejected Iran's response to a U.S. ceasefire proposal. Writing online yesterday, Trump described Iran's response as, quote, totally unacceptable. A ceasefire remains in place, but Iran is still cutting off oil shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. still has its blockade up of Iranian ports. Trump will meet with Chinese leader Xi Jinping this week in Beijing. Trump had rescheduled the visit to China after the war with Iran broke out. The issue of the war is likely to be a main topic, but NPR's Deepa Shivaram reports the AI race is also expected to come up.
When it comes to AI technology from American companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google, experts say those models are better than what China's putting out. The U.S. is, by some estimates, about 6 to 12 months ahead of China. So Trump is right that the U.S. is leading the AI race in that regard. But where China is inching ahead is on AI adoption, how integrated AI is in their society, and how accessible their AI products are. In the meeting this week, Trump and Xi are expected to talk about global risk management when it comes to the rise of AI. Deepa Shivaram, NPR News.
You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Okay, so we are in one of our pledge drives. We do this a few times a year so we wouldn't have to have commercials all the time. Mm-hmm. And I think you would really hate it if we had commercials. That would be horrible. So let me repeat the number, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And we have a really great gift today.
One of our favorites.
One of our favorites, the legendary Eton Emergency Crank Radio.
Yep.
All you do is crank that baby up and it supplies.
And then what happens, Margaret? Don't look at your notes. What happens once you crank it?
It can supply power for your phone.
Cell phone. Can charge
LED
your phone.
battery.
Yeah.
AM/FM radio, including the weather service, which might have come in handy if you were stranded with all that snow and you didn't power this winter, or during the anticipated El Nino of the summer.
You can get a tuna sandwich if you would choose to.
Pastrami on rye. I understand it's Eton.
By the way, in all seriousness, we're not supposed to say this. Some of the gifts from the past that have been discontinued were not our favorites. Can I say that?
They were not our favorites.
Okay, this one, we love
it's
the
legendary.
Eton Emergency Crank Radio.
I have a deep personal fondness for the Eton
And it's
Crank
really
Radio.
useful. And with weather being as horrible as it is, and all these kinds of weather emergencies, having this kind of thing really provides great security if you're driving around or you're whatever you're doing. You're camping.
Charging your phone is a very big deal for most people. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. This is only available till 11 o'clock today.
Actually, 1 o'clock.
Oops.
Because it's 11:06. So that'd be a little hard, Marjorie.
Oops, 1 o'clock today, because that's when our show is over.
That's
and
true.
I think people associate us with for better or worse, with the E. John Craig Radio. 888-897-9424,
It's 11 happened already. It's over
gbhnews.org.
at 1.
Sorry, my first mistake of the day. There'll be many more. Bright. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Tomorrow, we're going to be streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. As well, tomorrow, we're going to be back at the library down in Copley Square. The Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell, is going to join us. We're going to talk a lot about ballot questions.
All that new.
Yep, and she's going to take our questions as yours and yours. And on Wednesday, we're going to be joined by the Republican candidate for governor, Brian Shortsleeve, one of the two of them. He's going to be the first one we speak to. Live Music Friday with Boston's TT. That is on Friday, obviously. Hi, Jim.
And Mayor Wu is May 27th. We don't have a date yet for May for the governor, but we will soon. So GLP-1s like Wegovy and Ozempic are the blockbuster drugs at our time. First as a diabetes treatment, then, as you all know, as a miracle weight loss drug. The statistic I read this morning, 1 in 5 families in this country have a member who's using one of them, is stunning to me. More and more doctors and patients are reaching for GLP-1s and off-label to treat just about everything. We're going to find out in a minute if this is legit or not. Menopause symptoms, IBS, long COVID, addictions of all kind. The list goes on, not to mention the online wellness sphere touting GLP-1s for even bodybuilding and longevity. Meanwhile, sky-high prices of these drugs, particularly in the U.S., are driving up healthcare costs across the system and making them unaffordable for many, many people who need them in this country. What the long-term effects of this Ozempic experiment are on human health and healthcare affordability, we don't know. So we called in someone to answer our Ozempic era questions and yours. We're joined in Studio 3 by Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett, Vice Chair of Primary Care Innovation and Transformation at Boston Medical Center, Associate Professor at BU Medical School and Communications Fellow at Primary Care Collaborative. And by the way, after we talk to her for about 15 or 20 minutes, she's going to stick around and take your questions or comments about your experience or the experience you'd like to have with GLP-1s. Doctor, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Wonderful being with you both.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming in. Great to see you as always. So who is using these drugs?
It's a great question. So I will just say, Jim already said, there's stats out now that saying 1 in 5 families or households are using them. The Kaiser Family Foundation also came out with data saying it's 1 in 8 Americans are now using, 1 in 8 adult Americans are now using a GLP-1. So I think this is completely revolutionizing the American healthcare landscape. And I know today we'll talk about some of the evidence, maybe some of the social media hype around it, and then also some of the price and access questions that we have.
When you talk about 1 in 8 or 1 in 5 families have somebody in it, what I've been reading is the major category is white women. And we talk about health inequity with you and Michael Kerr and other people all the time here.
Yep.
The reality is a lot of low and moderate income people, particularly people of color, who have greater problems with diabetes and obesity than the general population. A lot of them are priced out of this deal, right?
That's absolutely right. So the access for those who may need GLP-1s more than others is more difficult. So a lot of it is price. A lot of it is access to the healthcare system, which we've talked about at length. There are a lot of kind of hoops to jump through, like prior authorizations that people need to go through.
You spend like all your time on that kind of stuff?
I will say, and I was sharing this with one of your producers, that it has become the writing of prescriptions, needing to go through prior authorizations, working with my pharmacy team as coverage shifts overnight sometimes takes probably greater than 20% of my brain
Wow.
space.
That
Yeah.
is unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. And yet, for very good reason. These are medications which we've seen incredible improvements in people's health, right? So we know that GLP-1s, just to remind your listeners, I know we've talked about this before, but they actually work on receptors that are in your small intestine, and actually they're receptors all over your body, which we now understand for these GLP-1s. And you have these peptides, which you take, right? You inject, which we've also talked about.
Well, they're pills now, too.
Well, now
right?
there are pills, but they're not peptides because your body actually can't use. One of them is not a peptide, one is. It's easier for your body to digest when it goes through the stomach, not using a peptide. So we can talk about that. But essentially, it works on receptors all over your body, right? And we know, obviously, one of the big things that happen is it reduces your hunger, it reduces food noise, it makes your insulin work better. It reduces, scarring and inflammation in the liver. It improves your kidney function. But importantly, one of the things that we're discovering too, and we still don't totally understand this. So I'm just going to say that the science is really evolving in terms of how we understand this. There are receptors in the brain, so your hypothalamus and your brainstem, that are reacting to these GLP-1s, because when we inject it, we actually are injecting levels that our body could never make, right? So what our body naturally makes dissolves within minutes. These last for a week in the body. So it's not just bigger amounts, it's longer acting. And in the brain, it does something that your natural hormone doesn't do, which it reduces, again, this sort of this craving that we know can happen in the hypothalamus.
And craving, just to be clear, not just for food.
Correct.
Craving for
addiction, all kinds of
from
addictive.
shopping addiction to drug addiction. And the research on these addiction issues is pretty convincing, right? I mean, some of the uses of the GLP-1s are still being researched, but the addiction stuff is pretty much the jury's in?
It's evolving, but we're seeing really good evidence in the right direction, especially around alcohol use disorder specifically. And we're now still looking at things like nicotine and other substances,
shopping.
gambling. Yeah. Right, exactly. So those have not been, there's not as much kind of evidence behind it, but we know that patients are reporting this at length.
But you just talked about scarring things, which are not in your head, they're in your body. So maybe we should all be taking, I don't know, how do you scar, what are you scarring, your kidneys or your liver?
I was talking about liver disease in that case, right? So there's very common, something very common that comes along with obesity and diabetes is something called fatty liver.
Yes.
And I know we've talked about it on the show before, but it's a massive chronic disease that is very difficult to treat. What we have found is that GLP-1s reduce fatty liver. So they improve the scarring, they improve the liver tissue in a way that we actually hadn't seen before. So we know semaglutide, which is one of the categories of GLP-1s, is now FDA approved for fatty liver with scarring.
Wow.
Yeah. So it is, it's dizzying to think about all the things. Well, let's talk about it's a double-edged sword, right? So there are side effects. We can't just say that it's a panacea for everybody, right? So we do know that some people have such bad nausea on this medication that they cannot take it. We also know that some people, like for instance, we used to have kind of concerns about thyroid cancer because we were seeing that in rats. I know we're going to talk about rats later when we talk about hantavirus.
We are, actually.
Yeah, it's very exciting lead-in for hantavirus. But we actually haven't seen the thyroid cancer play out in humans yet, or we actually have good evidence that's not the case. That being said, anybody with a family history of medullary cancer, so that's a different, very specific kind of cancer.
Thyroid.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You're not allowed to take it. That's one of the contraindications. So there are contraindications for the medicine.
You know what
By the way, can I just say we're talking to Dr.
Yeah.
Katherine Gergen Barnett, and while she's going to continue to answer our questions, some of the basics, and we're going to get to affordability in a minute, what happens if you have to get off or you choose to get off. And then in the next segment, she's going to take all your questions and comments. So if you want to get in line at 877-301-8970, you can do that.
I read this fascinating piece, I think it was in the Washington Post a couple of weeks ago, that talked about the kind of meh, like MEH effect, that this person was saying that their enjoyment of things, their joy, their bliss was kind of knocked out by these drugs. They loved the drug for what it did for, their weight or their other things, but that they just didn't. Does that sound reasonable?
Right. I mean, if you're cutting your sort of, kind of going back to this idea of how it can interact or how it acts in the brain and the brain stem, right? It makes a lot of sense. So the reward center we talk about a lot, and sort of addiction work, et cetera, or people, that sort of joy that you get maybe when you're doing something you shouldn't do, but that joy is real in the beginning, right? GLP-1s cut that joy center, right? So it actually reduces the kind of hit of pleasure that people get from certain things, which maybe causes some of the meh, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, you don't want to eat a whole Sara Lee chocolate cake. Even if it's still frozen anymore, it's still not there.
Or maybe other good things like sex. This woman was talking, implying about sex too, that the high that some people get from that.
We haven't seen a lot of evidence per se on that. Obviously, her experience is valid. There's not big pieces around that. That being said, there was a concern initially around some suicide ideation for people on GLP-1s. That has now been removed as a black box warning from the FDA as of this year. So that is no longer a concern that we have.
So getting off, we're going to get to affordability. Don't worry out there in a second. What lay people like me have read is once you're on, you got to stay on, or you're just going to gain all the weight back. If obesity is your issue, is that true?
That is what we understand. So it's really important that part of what I think the revolution of this drug and the conversation around this drug has caused is people understanding that obesity is not a moral falling, right?
Which is good.
It's actually a chronic disease. So we do so much judging in our society.
Well,
Medicine
like
does too.
of all kind.
Medicine does too. Somehow if you're obese, it's your fault, right? And we know in a lot of cases that's not true. Similarly, when you have something like high blood pressure and you come off your high blood pressure medicine, you will get high blood pressure again, right? So we're thinking about it in that same way. It's a medication that people need to stay on to keep their weight down.
Okay, so in terms of affordability, I know different insurance plans are taking different. So let's break it down, if we can, into three categories.
Please.
One is insurance companies in general, and I know there isn't a universal truth about this. Two, what happens if people are on Medicaid, which in Massachusetts is Mass Health, and then Medicare for obviously older people. Start with private insurance companies. Are most of them dropping coverage if the primary reason for the prescription is your weight as opposed to diabetes?
Yes. So as of January 1st, 2026, most private insurance companies have dropped GLP-1s from their covered formulary unless you are taking it for some chronic disease, not just diabetes. So now, again, like I said, we get coverage for sleep apnea, we can get it for fatty liver, we can get it for chronic kidney disease. So there are diseases for which it will get covered outside of just diabetes.
Even though, and you probably know I'm not a doctor, but I see a doctor enough that I'm almost a doctor.
Yeah, you are.
I could get a doctor.
Exactly.
Okay, so any idiot knows that if you deal with obesity, you're going to be a healthier human being. So has the calculation been made by the insurance companies that the amount, or governments that are dropping it, we'll get to that in a minute, that the amount of money that the payer would save by you not being having the ailments that overweight people have doesn't equal the cost of the drug? Is that the calculation? Do you understand that question?
Yeah, I do. I think so. Okay. The short-term costs are so are such an onus
For the drug.
For the drug, right? Even though we know that the long-term return on investment in terms of the health outcomes for the people taking them will actually be more beneficial.
But it's longer term.
But it's
so,
longer
okay.
term, right? So we work on that. One of the things that is so striking to me is that we have a expected $1 trillion budget to be spent on U.S. prescriptions this year.
Wow.
Most of which will be driven by GLP-1s.
That's incredible.
So we are in a massive debt because of these medications, and people are making, or I say pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies, more importantly, insurance companies are having to make tough choices.
Okay, so wait, I might want to get to Medicaid for a minute.
Please.
So my understanding is the Trump administration as such is not saying you can't cover GLP-1s because of the deep cuts they're making to Medicaid in the so-called Big Beautiful Bill law.
Yes.
Governors around the country, like our own Healy, are proposing in their budgets, correct me if I'm wrong, that the state employee, the GIC plan, no longer cover it, and that in the future, again, it hasn't been voted on by the legislature and signed by the governor yet, but she's proposing no more mass health Medicaid coverage either in the state. Is that right?
That is correct. In the 2027 fiscal budget that's proposed, GLP-1s will no longer be covered by mass health, and to your point, the GIC, which is all people who work for the state. And she's following suit, I think, of a lot of other states. As of last year, 16 states covered GLP-1s for Medicaid recipients. And now those numbers are going down lower and lower. And we're just yet another state to be dropping people. And it just goes back, again, what we just talked about a few minutes ago, to really think about who gets these medications and who doesn't. And it's just going to cost
people who can afford it are going to get them.
People even more disparities in terms of access.
You know what I just wondered? We have a big time obesity problem in the United States of America. We did not used to have
40%. Is that incredible?
But we did not used to have 50s, 40s, 60s. I don't know when it started, but it certainly was not there then.
Yep.
So neither were these weight loss drugs there then. So what is
ultra processed?
I mean,
food.
we talked about. I just did an op-ed, a month ago on ultra processed food.
It's the food. It's the bad food.
It's absolutely. I mean, it's
absolutely.
Okay. It's one of those things that our system itself has done nothing to help people.
Okay.
And then we provide this medicine, which actually seems to have huge benefits across the board, but people can't get them. But part of it is, again, and I know we'll talk more about the cost piece, but we are a country that bears the burden of these incredible pharmaceutical costs, right? So, in most any other kind of peer country, those prices for medications are a fraction of what we pay for GLP-1s because they're negotiated nationally. We don't do that. I know that Trump RX, Trump RX was trying to do that. We are moving in the right direction for Medicare negotiation.
Well, the pharmaceutical lobbies are too powerful.
But they play a very important and destructive role in the way that we are going to be getting this access. Now, I know that some people, for instance, our Secretary of Health and Human Services was interviewed to say these prices will inevitably go down. The market will inevitably go down. We think about hepatitis C medication and how inaccessible that was to so many people. And then there was sort of this Netflix model where you actually buy the opportunity to get as much hep C drugs as possible for, your patients. And so could there be something like an appetite, no pun intended, for something like that with GLP-1s?
The reason I was mentioning the processed food thing is a fascinating story I read this morning. Talked about a woman who's been taking one of these drugs, and she talks about how when she goes shopping now, her whole shopping habits at the grocery store have changed.
Yeah.
She goes to the
vegetable
and fruit
doesn't
aisles
go inside.
and the
And meat,
aisles. And she skips the
all
snack
the middle
food thing.
all the middle aisles. The other piece, I don't know, I'm assuming it's the same article, was this incredible thing where people are no longer buying clothes. They're doing that rental clothes thing where, because why own clothes when you're not going to be the same size, which I think is kind of amazing, right? To think about the way people have to shop now.
Can you tell us the Medicare thing I left out? What's going on? I mean, there may be some good news on that front. And before you answer,
Yes.
let me say you're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. We're speaking with Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett. And
Live, local, 5 days a week. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan.
7301-8970 to broach your own. What's going on with Medicare?
So there has been, I know that President Trump had announced with great excitement a Medicare agreement where private insurers would agree to cover a large chunk of GLP-1s for Medicare beneficiaries. There's been pushback on that. They've shelved that plan for 5 years, it sounds like. CMS, though, has come out with what they call a bridge program for GLP-1s, which starts July 1st, goes to December 31st of 2027. And it means that people who are on Medicare Part B, they can work with their providers to submit yet more paperwork, where they can be covered for GLP-1s if they have BMI greater than 35. So that's kind of, going into the morbidly obese, or 27, a BMI of less than 27 with other chronic diseases. And it's just going to be $50 a month. So that is supposed to start July 1st of this year.
Okay. Or we still have more time for this whole thing. So one other thing I read about, and this is just one story, so maybe it's not really true, but this woman that had a bad bike accident, got a bad concussion, 10 years of headaches. She says this helped her concussions.
Yeah. So I think that goes in the whole other category of things that we're seeing and hearing, right? But one of the things that is really interesting that is perhaps more of an umbrella explanation for that is that GLP-1s may help with the inflammatory process. So, inflammation really underlies a lot of what we see.
Tom Brady was always talking about that.
Yeah, so
anti-inflammatory
diet.
Yeah.
Anti-inflammatory diet is a fantastic diet. I talk to my patients about it all the time. It's basically eating low on the food chain. It's eating a lot of avocados and healthy oils and fats, and also, no processed foods, etc. But we are seeing that GLP-1s may be offering some benefit to the inflammatory system, in which case concussion can actually fall into that category. Concussion can be seen as a kind of inflammatory disease, as can many other things, right? So unlike traditional medicines we take to reduce our immune system, which helps with inflammatory symptoms, like prednisone or things like that, which really suppress our ability to fight diseases, but they cut down inflammation. This is not considered such a sledgehammer approach. GLP-1s are considered sort of like a soothing aloe to the inflammatory system.
Maybe we should all be taking these things.
Well,
these things are sounding better and better,
I know.
Jim.
I want to say
I want a soothing aloe.
That was my own made-up word. That is not in the medical literature, but they can be very helpful for a lot of people.
Okay, we are talking with Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett. We're talking, and she's Vice Chair of Primary Care, Innovation, Transformation at Boston Medical Center, Associate Professor at BU Medical Center, and Communications Fellow at Primary Care Collaborative. We're going to keep talking to her after this quick break. We're going to open the lines and talk to you at 877-301-8970. You can ask her all your questions about these wonder drugs. They sound like to me. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. This is BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We are talking to Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett. She was kind enough to extend her stay here. She was answering our questions about GLP-1 drugs. The reason we decided to do this, by the way, is every time we mention them in passing, we get huge feedback with questions that we don't have the ability to ask. So we thought we'd ask them, and you'd have an opportunity starting now to ask her anything you want or make comments about your experience or anything at 877-301-8970. I just have one last question before we do get to the calls, Doctor. Is like every single drug that I'm aware of, you can go online and find it without a doctor's prescription. They allegedly have a doctor. You fill in some form. They allegedly have a doctor somewhere who reviews this. They always approve, no matter what you say on the thing, as far as I know. When you have a patient who says, I can't afford it, or I'm about to lose it on Medicaid, what do you say when they say, I'm about to go online and buy it because I need it?
Well, first of all, it's a wild west out there in terms of what's available, right? So we do know that telehealth companies are popping up left and right. There's compounding that people offer around these GLP-1s, which frankly are unregulated. Right?
A lot of them have been enjoined by litigation from 100%. The manufacturers of the actual drug.
You don't know what you're getting. So some of the people are paying out of pocket. Okay. It's cheaper price, but it's still counterfeit. There's compounding problems. So if you are somebody who's a listener and you are going to a telehealth marketer and you're not going through your primary care provider, which is always what I'd recommend, to go through a primary care provider, because you need your labs checked, you need to be regulated. If you're on other medications, we need to see how it's interacting and take care of you. But the important things to ask if you're going through telehealth is, one, where do these drugs get compounded? Two, who can I speak to about this if there's a problem? And who manages my side effects?
Yeah, that's a very good point. By the way, Christine Duran Blankenship on YouTube sends us a post. I have used it for over 3 years, saved my life. Insurance just stopped covering it for me. She means I'm paying $449 a month. Yay for health insurance. Louise in Cambridge. Welcome to the show. You're on with Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett. Hi.
Hi. I'm calling because I had taken both Ozempic and tried Zepbound next. They're different formulations. In any event, at week 7, all of a sudden, I could almost not get out of bed. I know I'm a very small portion of the people who have this effect, but all of a sudden, I no longer wanted to listen to music. I no longer wanted to go out and walk in my garden. I no longer wanted to do much of anything. And it was very odd because with both of those drugs, it was week 7 that it happened. And I guess what I'm calling for is because it is dangerous for people to just order these by mail, because you need supervision, because you might be one of those unfortunate people like I am that has this kind of reaction, or maybe not something quite as dramatic. But, losing weight is important to me because I have arthritis in my legs and whatever. But, eating healthy is not something everyone has access to. And spending that amount of money on a drug that may really just be a temporary fix, it seems to me that people need to be doing this under the informed care of someone who will talk about other things that can change in their lives.
Louise, that was a great call. Let's get a reaction from the doctor. What do you say?
I'm super grateful for your call, and I'm so sorry that you had those reactions. And I think it's really important to highlight stories like yours, because even though they may not be as common, those side effects are very real for the small portion of people who experience them. And I'm really glad that you were able to, work with your doctor when you had those side effects.
Mary in Providence, you're on with Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett. Thanks for your call. Hi.
Hi. Thank you.
Sure.
I called because I have been a registered dietitian for this will be my 50th year, even though I sound so useful. And I have treated
you do indeed. Go ahead.
Obesity patients all along, and now I only see GLP patients.
Oh.
And I work for a research study, but I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever do this on my own, because goodness, there are so many. But anyway, with this study, it gives the patients, or subjects, we call them, 18 months of dietitian follow-up. And so I really get to know these people. And I have been an early adopter of the intuitive eating method since really the mid-'80s. And I have been through everything, name it. I mean, when I was young, it started with phentamine. I've been through, cutting your stomach up, drinking stuff, Oprah and jeans, I mean, name it. Fen, where we almost killed people with pulmonary hypertension. And I have to see, unlike what that woman before was saying, is that people do better with this, because you can tell. I mean, when you're on the research study, people, I guess there are some people who are non-responders, but who's gotten the placebo. It's really remarkable. And in that 18 months, it really gives them a chance to practice looking at a plate that is half full. Practice leaving food on the plate in the restaurant. Practice saying no. You know what I mean? And it just it changes them. And right now, my first group, about 35 patients, is going to be wrapping up the study in September, October. And I am doing research up the yin-yang about what to do after, because I really do think a lot of them are going to have to continue the drug, although many people are on a dose that I feel is way too high.
Mary, you're not allowed to say yin-yang on the show, unfortunately.
Right.
That was great. That was great. Thank you very much for the call.
So Mary, I'm really looking forward to reading your research outcomes, and it sounds like a really important study. And I think also part of what you elucidate in your call is the importance, again, of people who are on GLP-1s working with the nutritionist. So this is not just a shot in the dark, it's a whole team perspective. And what you were saying about the practice piece, but we also know that people who are on GLP-1s, they don't just lose fat, they lose muscle. So 25% of what people lose is muscle. So people really need to understand how to be working, again, with a trainer or whatever it may be, so they're actually working on their muscle mass and ensuring they get enough protein. So I'm sure you are working on those pieces, and clearly you've had a lifetime of giving goodness to people. So thank you.
We're talking to Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett about GLP-1s.
Here's Brenda from Swampscott with a question and a comment. Her question: I heard the next generation GLP-1 has a metabolism booster. Do you know anything about this? And then her comment: the presumption that people who are overweight don't know what being full feels like or always buy processed food is so hurtful. I've been dieting for 45 years. I've always had clothes of various sizes because my weight rebounds. I have to remind myself to eat sometimes. I still can't lose weight. I believe dieting since the age of 10 wrecked my metabolism.
Yeah. So Brenda, two pieces. Absolutely, that the idea that people are obese because they have, again, some sort of moral failing is absolutely, something that we need to be talking about again and again and cutting down those notions. And certainly when we talk about processed foods, it's much more about the landscape of the United States and how much we are doing as a country to place barriers before people when they're trying to do just what you do, which is taking care of yourself. And then the second piece, which you're talking about, so there actually, there's something called retatrutide, which is, people call it Retta, as talked about on Reddit and things as Ratatouille. People are using all kinds of code names for it, or a GLP-3 is how people are talking about it. This is still being investigated. So this is not FDA approved, but what it has is it's got the GLP-1 in it, the GIP, which helps with your insulin, and glucagon, which increases your energy expenditure. So the initial evidence that came out is that people had a weight loss of like 24% on this. So this is more than some of the other GLPs that we see on the market. And again, people are buying it off what we call the gray market, just buying it online without any sort of supervision. So please, I urge people who are listening not to be doing this and wait until it's FDA approved and work with a provider.
But what about the metabolism piece? Can you wreck your metabolism by starting to diet when you're a young child?
Yeah, I mean, so I absolutely, this yo-yo dieting. I mean,
Yeah.
there's, this is not a new concept. We've seen it since probably Twiggy was popular, right? Where people, what they do is your body, when you start to starve it, your body freaks out and it holds on to calories more effectively than ever. So once you start eating, then it's really good at holding on to those calories and turning it into fat because it thinks that you've had this terrible situation with a crop harvest or something, and your metabolism really can actually slow down.
Could this have been your mother's fault with the extra piece of salami on your sandwich every night?
To my knowledge, my mother never did anything wrong, so I wouldn't
Happy
know. Why would
belated
you even
Mother's
ask
Day.
that question?
Jim
Rose,
talks a lot about his
Wow.
extra special
Salami.
sandwich he ate every
Hebrew
night.
National salami every night. I
Yeah.
get in bed. She made me a salami sandwich with an extra piece.
That's so
Isn't that what a
cute.
doctor says you should have
Every
right
night.
before you go to sleep?
Yeah,
Exactly.
extra slice of salami keeps the
Exactly.
doctor away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Rose and Dedham, you're on with Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett. Thank you for calling. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
We're great.
I have gastroparesis, so I'm not supposed to be on a GLP, but I actually am on Zepbound. I've tried a couple of others that weren't effective. I also have other metabolic issues, but my question, well, I'm falling prey to the GIC not covering the insurance starting June 30th. So I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing. I am doing my whole plan on, with a lot of support with providers that have been very helpful. And I'm not an overeater. So that obesity is just a problem of mine, but I don't eat too much. If anything, I'm at fault of not eating enough, but I'm working on that as well. So what am I supposed to do next? Starting June 30th. My gastroparesis isn't going to go away, but this is working for me.
Yeah.
By the way, for those who don't know, GIC covers state employees, and as we said in Governor Healey's budget, she's proposing no longer it being covered.
We're getting deluged with people whose insurance has cut them off here on the text messages.
What do you say to Rose?
So Rose and all of you who have the concerns about insurance coverage, I honestly, I don't have a good answer. I think it's going to be something where we're going to be having to continue to work with the insurers to be, driving down costs, and Rose, working with your physician, seeing what kind of compromise, whether you can come up with another GLP-1 that will be covered. But this is absolutely a sticky point, and I'm very sorry that you're in it.
You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. We're taking, Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett is taking your calls. Let me just say,
it's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH.
Coverage eliminating. I think I wasn't as clear as I should have been. The governor's proposed no longer state funding for state employees and people on mass health, which is what we call Medicaid here. It is not a done deal. It is a proposal and a budget.
That's true.
People are free to lobby against it. Now, the problem is because of Trump's Medicaid cuts, something's got to go.
Yeah.
But if that's your primary concern, then lobby the hell out of your legislator and the governor, and she'll be with us. We don't have a date yet, later this month. So lobby those people, and when the governor's with us, give her a call if you choose to do so,
I think that's a totally fair response.
Now, unfortunately, we have a ton of calls, and maybe you'll come back and do this. I'm just watching CNN over your shoulder, and I have to say I'm disgusted by CNN having Dr. Deborah Birx, who disgraced herself in the first Trump administration on COVID. She's on about hantavirus. So rather than going to somebody who bowed down to Trump and, as I say, totally, in my opinion, misled America out of sycophancy, can you spend a minute and tell us how fearful we should be? Everybody is following that flight. There's 17 Americans who were flown to Nebraska to be quarantined. How worried should people be about this?
So for anybody who hasn't been following the news about hantavirus, so there was this Dutch cruise. There was an outbreak. 7 people got sick. 3 people died. To your point, Jim, now we're carefully tracking everybody else that was on this cruise ship. But frankly, if you look at the epidemiological evidence, this is actually not, first of all, hantavirus is exceedingly rare. You get it from rat feces usually. It gets aerosolized, so it's not usually, it's almost never human-to-human contact.
It killed Rob Reiner's, not Rob Reiner, Rob Reiner.
Yeah, Rob Reiner.
His wife.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I ever heard of it because...
Yes. So to your point, I mean, again, it's like, this is part of why it's capturing our imagination because of these 3 deaths and because we're still kind of have COVID-19 on the mind. This is not predicted to be any sort of pandemic. This is, again, it's really important that the people who are on the cruise are isolated and not in contact with others. But I don't think people should be losing sleep about this.
Okay, our apologies. There are a lot of you waiting to talk. We'll do this again in relatively short order if you're interested.
The cruelty of this, really, to give people a drug that's basically changed their lives and been miraculous for them, and then to say we're not going to pay for it anymore. I mean, that's horrible.
But this is part of what we need to call our pharmaceutical companies and bring them to our knees so they can actually give fair coverage.
Your Republican congressperson and thank them for voting for $1 trillion cut in Medicaid, which is one of the reasons why some governors are forced to cut back.
It's a tough time.
Doctor, this is really helpful.
Thank you so much. We have been speaking with Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett. She, of course, is from Boston Medical Center, Chair of Primary Care Innovation there, Associate Professor at BU's Medical School. And coming up next, we're going to be talking with Khalil Gibran Mohammed. He joins us to talk about the latest push at Harvard to establish viewpoint professorships and I guess silencing anybody who says anything pro-Palestine. I'm Marjorie Egan, he's Jim Browdy, listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back at the library tomorrow. We'll be joined from 11 to noon by the Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell. On whatever suits you, we're going to talk a lot about ballot questions headed to November's voters. And obviously, we'll talk about question 1, the audit of the legislature, which just had a hearing at the state's highest court. And on Wednesday, we'll be joined by the first of 2 Republicans who are seeking their party's nomination for governor to run against Healy. Brian Shortsleeve, who you may remember, former head of the T, will join us on Wednesday. We have a request out to Mike Minogue. Live Music Friday is Friday with Boston's TT. Joined now on Zoom by Khalil Gibran Mohammed, professor of African American Studies and Public Affairs at Princeton. He also directs the Institute for Anti-Racism and Accountability Project there. And he is a non-resident senior fellow at the Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation at Harvard. Great to see you as always. Thanks for your time.
Hey, it's great to be here. Good to see you both.
Good.
Yeah, I got to tell you, reading these stories in anticipation of talking to you today has got me worked into a total and complete frenzy here. So let's start with what happened at Princeton, where the Daniel Yu, class of 26, obviously that's now, was announced as the valedictorian, and then the you-know-what hit the fan. What happened?
Well, we don't know how many said this in terms of social media, but there was a storm of criticism directed at the university, essentially claiming that African American studies isn't a real major like physics, and therefore devaluing the choice of Daniel Yu as a valedictorian to represent the university.
Well, yeah. By the way, I looked at the piece. The first comment after it was announced the first, I don't know how many more there were. This is a quote, how are physics and other real majors supposed to compete with African Americans, with someone majoring in African American studies, for valedictorian? Your response is fairly measured there, I should say. So what was your real reaction when you heard that?
Well, it's not that it was measured. I'm trying to, first of all, we have less time together. So that's one thing. But I think the most important thing is it is part of the moment we are living in where it is open season on anything having to do with understanding how race and racism work in the world. And so just to point out something really simple, Princeton honored a student in 2019 who was a history major as valedictorian. In 2016, an English major. Columbia's University's valedictorian in 2022 was an English major. So the point is now this is an issue that it happens to be African-American studies by comparison to physics. It's absurd, but it is part of the political attack that seeps into the consciousness. And now people as a kind of baseline are to suggest that this isn't real work.
By the way, was he ever a student in one of your classes? Did you have?
I did not have. No, I just got there. I've just taught 1 year. But Daniel, you was amazing. Let me also point out something. We have a student graduating this year. His name is Abdur Rahman Bhatti. This student incubated a new AI-generated platform that has been absorbed by a major company called TradeSpace. So he's graduating. He's now the co-founder of a startup. He's an African-American studies minor. So this notion somehow that the students that we produce, the students who understand how race and racism and power work in the world, are somehow less qualified to lead. His major was computer science, to be sure, but it is just part of the propaganda machine that is working in this moment.
So the reason I was such in a frenzy was because of that story, and then going on to Rutgers and the University of Michigan, where a professor at University of Michigan said something I don't see as outrageous. He talked about in this speech he was giving, a commencement speech, he mentioned, among other things, students standing up during the Black Action Movement, and then he went on to pro-Palestinian student activists, commending them, who have, over these past 2 years, opened our hearts to the injustice and humanity of Israel's war in Gaza. Now, maybe you don't like the war being called unjust or inhumane, but I think when we all saw what happened in Gaza, as we all saw the horror of what happened October 7th, that is a cause for the president of the university to apologize.
By the way, at least he got to speak. The guy at Rutgers was canceled because of his pro-Palestinian comments.
You can hold. We've been saying this forever. You can hold two things at once: the horror of what happened October 7th, and then the horror of what happened in Gaza. They're both outrageous, inhumane, unjust horrors. So why this reaction?
Well, because there is extreme political pressure being put at every level of higher education and across all sectors of society to shut down any criticisms of Israel. That is where we are. And the Trump administration is weaponizing anti-Semitism to serve its own right-wing fascist attack on an open society. The goal here is to silence, to censor, to create massive fear so that the MAGA party, of which Trump is the head of, can have total control. And information is the only real lever for motivating people to see things for what they are and to resist against it. Let me also point out, in the brief summary you mentioned, in the moment when he mentions pro-Palestinian student activities, he also started with the first white woman who integrated the university. He moved on to the first Jewish professor who became a faculty member there. He then included Black student activism, basically giving a chronological sweep of activism to make the University of Michigan a more inclusive, diverse, and equitable place. And so there's a carve out here for pro-Palestinian students. The point is that if we live in a free speech society, which the Constitution granted us these liberties, then we live in a free speech society. There shouldn't be exceptions to whether or not you get to speak your views, whether it's for Rutgers or Michigan or anywhere else.
But the college president apologized. about the Palestinian remark. I guess maybe I'm
Why are you
just...
so surprised? Some donor called him on the phone who was offended, said, I'm not going to give my $3 million.
I get it if you are going to lose your job and you're struggling to pay the rent if you step out. But if you were a college president, you're probably making enough money that you can afford to do the right thing because you are going to be able to feed your family.
You say the same thing about the tech bros, Marjorie, by the way.
I do. I know. But I mean,
it's a new time.
Also, not to mention that this kind of thing, everybody's worried about legitimate anti-Semitism, at least some people are. This is breeding anti-Semitism. I mean, it's not helping the cause. So I guess I'm just surprised. I'm surprised at Harvard, where you used to be. I'm surprised at Rutgers. I just am surprised that powerful people are knuckling under as if there's somebody that's working to make ends meet at McDonald's or something,
Well, I'm no longer surprised, but I remain frustrated, outraged, disgusted by the cowardice that leaders demonstrate. I mean, the other possibility with the University of Michigan president and some of the regents who spoke out publicly against Derek Peterson, the professor who gave the speech, is that they believe this. And so
they do.
They're entitled.
They believe
that
it.
They in fact believe that he crossed the line, that this somehow was offensive. I mean, just to give one detail in the Rutgers case, Rami Eigenauer is not just any alum who was then being brought back to speak. He's actually an engineering graduate who is an executive producer of a film called The Voice of Hind Rajab, who is a young child who was killed in the early days of the attacks on Gaza. What makes her story remarkable is that it was caught on an emergency call where she was asking for help. She was bleeding out. She was saying, please, someone come help me.
5 years old.
That's right. So this is a particular kind of recognition of the loss of life, of innocence in this moment. And that is disqualifying. I mean, there is no space to recognize what we have lost as a society, as a world community in the wake of what's gone on in Gaza and now in the West Bank over the past couple of years. It's outrageous.
So Khalil Gibran Muhammad, I didn't apply to Harvard when I was graduating from high school because I wouldn't have gotten in, and I didn't want the embarrassment. But had I gotten in, I need you to explain something to me. If viewpoint diversity was being implemented then, like Alan Garber wants to do it now with these endowments, how do you get viewpoint diversity, for example, in my biology course? What exactly... What is viewpoint diversity in biology, or I don't know, algebra?
The dentists are immune because they want, you're going to have a bridge or the implant or the dentures.
I don't even know what this means. What does it mean? You call up Donald Trump and ask who he wants you to hire, and you hire. What does it mean even?
Well, Jim, I wish that your irony and ironic tone were actually not appropriate for this conversation. But the truth is, it is absolutely appropriate. We have a growing body of medical professionals drawing on biological sciences to make the case that we should not have vaccines, that we should not be concerned about the way in which disease moves differently in different communities, which would require some recognition of the relationship between structural racism and medicine and how people experience healthcare. We have an entire community of viewpoint diverse people who don't believe in climate change and global warming. So I guess the idea is that we should now be hiring people who deny the scientific consensus because that is a liberal orthodoxy advanced by a left-wing radical group of people who go for Democrats. I mean, that is exactly what the absurdity of this movement is all about.
And by the way, they're raising money to endow chairs so that they can have more viewpoint diversity, whatever. Well, you just described what it means at Harvard. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, and we're talking to Princeton's Khalil Gibran Muhammad.
Okay, so there may be a little good news in this union of professors. I think you're among them. What are you doing?
AAUP.
Yes. What's it called?
Well, the American Association of University Professors has seen an uptick in membership over the past couple of years. The number's grown from 43,000 in 2024 to 50,000 in the latest figures. Todd Wolfson is the current president, a Rutgers University president with a long commitment to union organizing in his broad sweep of academic and other interests. What's interesting about this moment is this surge of interest in the AAUP, of which I actually joined earlier this year for the first time in my career, mimics an earlier moment during the McCarthy era when there were attacks in higher education, trying to root out all the so-called communists in higher education. This is good news with respect to the overall ability of faculty to work collectively at national scale to respond to the fundamental attacks in what we do and what we represent.
And by the way, they have a response, we should say. It's not just rhetorical response. Just as an example, they've filed a bunch of lawsuits, including at Harvard, against the Trump administration. And while we've talked to you quite often about how, let me be euphemistic and say that the majority of university presidents have been somewhat reticent in terms of their willingness to take on Trump, with some wonderful exceptions, this AUP has been front and center and decided to litigate or do whatever else it's got to do to defend academic freedom, which is a really great thing.
So
That's right. Yes.
So I wonder what you think. President Trump will not be President Trump forever. We don't know what's going.
How do you know that?
Well, I hope not. Although Saturday Night Live made a big joke about how Kavanaugh, the Supreme Court justice, was going to help him make a third term. It was a joke. But anyway, what is the university life like going forward? What's the recovery time, or will it recover? What do you think?
I think that overall, this is less about Trump in the end than it is about a critical mass of elected officials across many of our states, particularly red states, who are gutting academic freedom and the humanities and other fields that they don't perceive to be either useful in securing a job or that they see as threatening politically because they encourage students to think independently and to question authority. So keep in mind that Donald Trump actually has fewer levers in how our universities work. I mean, he has basically spent 2 years doing as much damage as he can. I don't think we're going to see much more damage from the Trump administration. A lot of that was to encourage and sow fear. But at the state level, the state legislative bodies across this country, Texas and Florida being the most aggressive in this, are transforming higher education right now. And that's not going to change anytime soon, particularly with the voting rights decision last week in the case of Louisiana, allowing for maximum gerrymandering. Republicans are already gaining more ground in many states because of the Supreme Court decision. So universities in Florida and elsewhere, now faculty have to submit their syllabi in advance to get approval from whom? From political appointments at the state level to decide what they can or cannot teach. That is our reality, and that reality is not changing anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned the voting rights case, because it seems to me the greater threat than Trump, because I do assume that he will be gone, even if Trumpism lives on beyond him in January of 29. Supreme Court is going nowhere. And if Trump gets what he is rumored to be wanting, Alito and Thomas to step down so he can nominate young Alito and Thomas before he loses the Senate majority, should that happen in 26 or 28, the Supreme Court has shown itself through this whole last term or two to be totally, have a great antipathy towards academic freedom, right? And diversity, which is sort of at the core of great universities, no?
Yeah, I mean, listen, MAGA infrastructure exists from local school boards around this country all the way up to the Supreme Court. And while Donald Trump is clearly their dear leader, his ability to have motivated and inspired an entire new generation of people to carry up this work leaves us with the reality that we will be fighting this fight for a much longer period of time than the midterms or the next presidential election.
By the way, I was really disappointed when I mentioned to you before that had I applied to Harvard, I wouldn't have gotten in. You didn't express any shock or, I mean, it was very disappointing, I have to say. I don't mean to
Jim, sometimes the universe moves in ways to scare you from decisions that you should not have made.
Beautifully
Thank
put.
you.
It's great
Thank
to see
you
you as
very
always.
much. Watch
well.
your blood pressure down there.
Thank you.
Khalil Gibran
See you
Mohammed
soon.
is professor of African American Studies and Public Affairs at Princeton, where he directs the Institutional Anti-Racism and Accountability Project. He's also the non-resident senior fellow at the Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation at Harvard. Because we got such a tremendous response for this, we're going to play something coming up that somebody who actually did stand up and continues to stand up. That would be former Metropolitan Police Officer Michael Fanone. Say goodbye at NAPM. We keep going in Boston.
Find that Friday feeling early at GBH Music's Jazz Night, featuring saxophonist Ken Fields with his RSE Trio, Thursday at 5:30 at the Boston Public Library. Get a free ticket at wgbh.org/events.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Biogen. For nearly 50 years, Biogen has been committed to advancing biotechnology innovations to develop new medicines for people with hard-to-treat diseases. Biogen, making breakthroughs happen. Biogen.com.
And Atlantic Design Center by Eldridge Lumber and Hardware, committed to helping customers achieve their vision for a new kitchen or bathroom and guiding them from design to completion, with showrooms in York and Portland, Maine. AtlanticDesignCTR.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan. We're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. We're going to be joined by the Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell. We're going to talk to her a lot about ballot questions, but she'll also, as usual, take our questions and yours. Wednesday, we're going to be joined by the GOP candidate for governor, one of them anyway, Brian Shortsleeve, and Live Music Friday with Boston's TT. Hello again, Jim.
I want to repeat the other Republican vying, as that verb goes, for the Republican nomination run against Governor Healy. Mike Minogue we have reached out to, and we're trying to get a date. Our noon guest had to reschedule, so we're bringing you our recent conversation with Michael Fanone. We picked that because the response when he was here was just spectacular.
Standing
as
ovation
it should have been.
at the library.
It was a spontaneous standing O. He joined us on May 1. You'll remember Ken Casey, the Dropkick Murphys, was co-hosting. Here's that conversation. Rumor has it, Michael, you attended the first Dropkick concert in D.C. in 1996. True or false?
That is true.
Michael Fanone, welcome to the show. We're really glad to have you. What was that like?
Yeah, so I was listening to Michael Patrick McDonald and talking with Ken about how Joe Strummer kind of shaped their principles and their identity as kids. Well, for me, that was Ken Casey and the Dropkick Murphys. I went to their first show at the Coffee House, which was an Ethiopian cafe that doubled as a punk rock club by night. I had my first drink there when I was 12 years old, and I saw them play in 1997. I've got a million Dropkick Murphy stories throughout my life, but that was the first time I met Ken Casey, and their first record, Do or Die, that really shaped my outlook, my principles, maybe very much so who I am today.
Wow. Exactly.
You got anything you want to say to that, Ken?
It's funny enough, that show, if you remember, back in those days, like you said, a lot of the venues were playing like what doubled as something else, the rest of the day or whatever. And our very first van, I don't know if you recall this, when we pulled up, it was an
MTA van.
Yeah, we bought the handicap vans. We bought one at auction. And those things are meant to drive around, like dropping people out, and we'd be doing hard miles on the highway, And we'd always have like one of the bands we were playing with, we'd take them with us, and the ride has the bar is just like a subway, and people were driving 9 hours and was standing for most of it. But the good thing about that van, it had a bathroom, so we had that going for us because it had the bubble roof. We could stand and put a funnel out the back.
Oh, God.
The cars behind us would always have the wipers on. But ironically, I'll never forget that show because it seemed to be the first time that we pulled up and the kids standing on the sidewalk were like, noticed the van, like, are these guys for real? They're like, rep Boston so hard. They talk about Boston sports, Boston punk rock, and now they even show up in an MBTA van, which, by the way, we later peeled the roof off, hitting a low bridge, and we toured it for another year in it with the roof peeled back. And I was the co-pilot back in those days. I'd read the maps, and Rick, our guitar player, driving when it rained. I'd have an umbrella out inside the van. So that was touring in the old days. But Michael, DC punks, just like everywhere you go, and it was community. You know what I mean? And maybe our music shaped him, but certainly the feedback and the way we were treated from people in those punk scenes shaped our future to keep wanting to do it. And then now fast forward to moments like that, and you see someone that you admired so much in their behavior and their action. Keep in mind, Michael was, a Metropolitan Police, just got called there. He wasn't a Capitol Police officer, so he got called there. So you could have, if you had the day off that day or on the other side of town, your life would have, not been impacted so negatively the way it has. But Michael has, he's inspired all of us. I think a lot of us kids. Can I say everyone here is inspired by Michael's behavior, and not just the way he stood up to protect, the people at the Capitol that day, but the way he's so fiercely fought back. And listen, truth be told, white males are what got us into this mess, the way we voted for Trump. So I think that there's no coincidence of the guest because we need to be the mirror speaking back to MAGA, because MAGA would love to just say, you got blue hair and a nose piercing. No. We look like you, and we sometimes trigger them the most because they get the maddest that we don't agree with them.
Speaking of voting for Trump, you voted for Trump in 2016, didn't you?
I did.
And
2016.
What was the moment where you said to yourself, maybe this wasn't such a great idea?
I think it was probably the first time Donald Trump opened his mouth after he took the oath of office.
No, I'm serious. Was that really it?
It was pretty soon after. I mean, when he went after James Comey, who was somebody. I mean, I don't love every decision that James Comey ever made as the FBI director, but he was a man of integrity, and I could see that clearly as somebody who spent 2 decades in law enforcement, and to watch the President of the United States attack him viciously, and then fast forward now 10 plus years, and he's going after him again. I thought the guy was a clown, and immediately I regretted my choice.
Well, Michael Fanone, when I, like millions of Americans, watch on television what happened January 6th, these vicious attacks on you and other police officers and people trying to protect the Capitol, I very naively thought that what was going to hit the fan, there was going to be immediate accountability. Did you, at least at the beginning, expect that you and your fellow officers would be lauded and taken care of?
I mean, never in my wildest dreams did I think that we would be experiencing what we're experiencing today, specifically surrounding that day and then the events that led up to that day. I assumed naively that there would be accountability for January 6th.
Yeah.
And what we've experienced in this country is the exact opposite.
And you have taken some grief from even fellow officers that know what happened to you, but they don't want to talk about what happened to you.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of different reasons behind that, motivations. I think first and foremost, I would say that the law enforcement community is very much so, it eats its own.
Yeah.
And when people become public figures out of the law enforcement community, there's a lot of internal attacks, and that's I think true to to a lot of career choices in this in this country. So there was a lot of that. There was a lot of people who misunderstood my motivations for speaking out. I mean, the first interviews that I gave that were actually sanctioned by my department was because I felt so inspired by what I witnessed that day, the actions of these other officers, that I wanted people to hear about those stories at a time in which law enforcement, and rightfully so, was at the forefront of a lot of conversations and not for good reasons.
Yeah.
And so I said, hey, listen, if we're going to criticize law enforcement, we should also be able to recognize when cops do what they're supposed to do and do their jobs. Because, listen, there were a lot of guys that were in the tunnel with me that day, the Lower West Terrace Tunnel, of all varying political ideologies. There were a lot of Trump supporters that were in that tunnel that recognized that what was happening that day was wrong, and they went there and they did their jobs. And so we should have been able to recognize that, and at the time we weren't. Obviously, fast forward a couple of months, and there was a congressional hearing, which many of us remember. I remember very well, vividly, in which Representative Andrew Clyde from Georgia infamously characterized the day at the Capitol as just another tourist day at the Capitol. And that's when I realized that we were going to go down a completely different direction, when it came to the January 6th narrative.
Why do you, I said to you this morning, I don't think I've said this to 5 guests in all the years you've been on the air. When I introduced myself, I mentioned not only how much Marty and I admire you from afar, we hadn't met you before, but how much we talk about you and who you are. Many decent people who suffered great loss on that day have decided to just move on because they can't deal with this crap. You've kept it in people's eyes, right in their face, which I think we all agree is hugely important. How'd you make that decision to stay focused on the nightmare of January 6th?
I'm a special kind of
I was going to say that. I was going to ask that, but
and it's true. I would go back and if you want to blame somebody for that, you'd blame Ken Casey. But when Kevin McCarthy went down to Mar-a-Lago,
former Speaker of the House,
Speaker of the House, and kissed Donald Trump's ass, and then literally the next day, this new narrative sprung out about January 6th and what happened. That it pissed me off, and so there was no way that I was going to stop, and the threats and the online that anyone who's in this space, Ken knows, has experienced, it's not real. The vast majority of Americans recognize what's happening right now. The vast majority of Americans have been extremely supportive of my message. I wish there were more cops that would stand up and speak out, but I wish there were more Americans that would stand up and speak out. But at the same time, I recognize, the fear and the concern. Listen, my family and I have been through it all. For those of you who are familiar, my mother, who lived in Northern Virginia, the same home for 33 years, she had to sell her home and relocate because of the amount of threats that she was receiving. And these weren't just, online threats. These were people that were coming to her house, to express their displeasure in her son speaking out against this administration. One of them, even had the foresight to bring a bag of dog and throw it on her while she was raking the leaves. And so, there's a fear. There's I think Americans have enjoyed such a degree of success, at least most of us have enjoyed a level of success in this country that we don't want to be uncomfortable. And it's that willingness to be uncomfortable and maybe lose your job. I lost my job. I had to resign or quit the police department because I recognized that being an outspoken advocate for democracy and the Constitution did not mesh well with being a Metropolitan Police officer.
Talking to Michael Fanone.
And we're going to be right back with more of Michael Fanone, the former DC Metropolitan officer injured in the January 6 attacks. After this quick pledge break, I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy.
Boston Public Radio today was made possible by our listener contributors. That's how GBH works. The money you give keeps Boston Public Radio on the radio. Please sign up as a sustaining member during this membership drive. Listening to Boston Public Radio doesn't cost you anything, but pulling this show together every day, that takes work. So why not lend a hand with a contribution in any amount at 888-897-9424 or online at gbhnews.org.
I can't believe it.
You know what this is?
I know exactly what
I finally got one today.
What is it?
It is the sound you make when you're cranking up the Eton Crank Radio
Emergency
to
crank
rescue
radio.
you in times of need, which, as we said a million times, but let's say it again because you can only get it for 40 minutes more. It's going to be gone at 1 o'clock. And if you don't have one of these babies, you'd be lucky to have one in case of a crisis, like when we lost power.
Seriously?
A lot of us did. Yeah, this
or
winter.
if your cell phone's dead or your car dies
Yep,
or
that's
whatever
right. It will charge your cell phone. All you have to do is crank it up. Here's the sound again. All you have to do is crank it up.
crank it up.
$10 a month. It will charge your radio. Has an LED flashlight if you do not have a flashlight. And how many of us carry around flashlights when we need them? AM, FM, and the National Weather Service channel if you were trying to hear about a weather deal. So that's
Could you
the deal.
do me a favor?
What?
Could you crank it while I'm reading some
Absolutely,
of the comments?
I'd be happy to.
In the background.
Go ahead. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
This is actually pretty moving. Liza in Foxborough, you should stop for this one. This is a serious one. This donation is in memory of our dear friend Brenda Wells. One of our last outings was to see Jim and Marjorie live at the library.
Oh.
That is really...
Oh.
Liza, that
Liza,
was really
thank
nice
you
to
for
share
that.
And really, now you can do it now because these are a little lighter. Eileen in Portsmouth, love Jim's sense of humor and extensive knowledge of current events. Love Marjorie for the same reasons and, in capital letters, because she keeps them in check. You both rock. Keep up the good work. Marjorie and Jim are the best, capital letters. This is my favorite. Please have the guy who pronounces words. In other words, mayonnaise. That's an AI guy, Julian, whatever the hell it is.
Is he an AI guy?
Well, I think he is.
I thought he was real.
He's real? Nicole says he's real?
He's real.
Oh, my God. I take it back. We'll have him on again. Also, shout out to John King. I hang on his words, as do we. Again, as Marjorie said, only 39 minutes for her to be doing that aggravating cranking of the Eton Emergency Crank Radio. $10 a month, $120 all at once. It is gone at 1 o'clock. 888-897-9424.
I'm exhausted.
Well, good. So stop doing it. gbhnews.org. Fabulous thank you gift. Again, 39 minutes, and all of us here, thank you. Welcome back to BPR 89.7 GBH. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. We're continuing our conversation with Michael Fanone, former Metropolitan Police officer, seriously injured in the January 6th attacks. Again, this was a conversation we had with him a week ago Friday when he joined us the day that Ken Casey was our co-host.
Michael, tell us about the plaque that was finally put up
at 4 a.m.
4 in the morning in honor of the police.
I'll be honest with you, because I was actually one of the original advocates for the plaque. I mean, this predates, this is pretty early on in the January 6th aftermath saga, whatever you want to call it. And I got together with a number of different lawmakers, and we wanted to put up a plaque that named, at first it was going to be the officers that, the agencies, but also the officers that fought in the Lower West Terrace Tunnel. There was approximately 100, and change that showed up that day and fought in that tunnel, which was the pinnacle of the violence on January 6th. And they did so for the better part of 6 hours. I mean, I was there for only a fraction of that time. I showed up, was injured, almost immediately, and had to be transported to a hospital. But I wanted to recognize those officers, and I thought they deserved it. And they were really the representation of the best to come out of that day. Fast forward again 4 years, and the legislation passes. But Republicans refused to put the plaque up. Mike Johnson said that it wasn't feasible or some like that. And then finally, after Harry Dunn, Capitol Police officer, who I'm sure you're all familiar with.
Yes.
I went to Ukraine with Harry Dunn. He's the man.
did.
Yeah, he is.
Best.
He's a good dude.
He's the best.
He's also running for Congress.
Yep.
Yeah.
For Harry.
But him and I always joke about Danny Hodges, the lesser known of the four of us that testified before Congress, who's still a Metropolitan Police officer to this day. They brought a lawsuit against Mike Johnson and House Republicans to have the plaque, put up. And then Mike Johnson put it up, and he put it up in an area that's not publicly accessible in the Capitol to the general public. And he did so at 3 o'clock in the morning on a weekend. There's that old saying that once you see how the sausage is made, you don't want to eat it anymore. Like I didn't. At that point, I was done with the plaque. I didn't give a shit about the plaque. I didn't want a plaque. I couldn't care less about the plaque. In fact, I had said I thought the best place to honor the police officers would be to place the plaque up Mike Johnson's ass.
Hey, Keith Lockhart should have made him a message.
Because I mean, listen, to me, getting an award, I don't need that validation from House Republicans or House Democrats for that matter. Like, I know what I did that day. The American people know what I did that day. They know what the Metropolitan Police did that day, and so I couldn't care less about a plaque at this point.
So could you both, you're doing something together, Down for the Cause of Saving Democracy. Starting with you, tell us what it is you're trying to achieve, you two.
Yeah, Michael and I both being, people involved in the punk scene are kind of trying to use our leverage, bullying powers, whatever you want to call it, to just try to get other bands to get off the sideline. We have starting this group, Down for the Cause, which is basically going to be a social media platform for other bands to reshare. Hey, you don't want to share this messaging yourself, but maybe you'll become part of this and reshare our messaging. And we're working on a tour to take place before the midterms. And I can come at a band. A lot of what Michael and I see from bands in the scene is, and a lot of people might not know this, not punk rockers, but Michael famously wore a shirt of ours that says "Fighting Nazis since 1996."
It's the Congress.
The Congress. And the reason
there it is, right there.
Yeah, what I'm speaking, and the point being is, then we made that shirt because we literally have been in the punk scene. We'd show up to shows, and sometimes it might be Michael and some good guys in DC waiting for us when we rolled up, and in some parts of the country it was Nazi skinheads, and we would have to physically fight with them. And now a lot of the bands in the scene will say, well, I'll keep the Nazis out of the scene. And I said, whoa, that's gone. Hate groups don't focus on dissatisfied kids in a punk scene now. They've got way bigger plans. They're on the college campuses. Yeah. They're in the White House. So we're trying to say to bands, like, you need to take this and think bigger than just like watching the perimeters of your own music scene. You got to take it to the streets. And so we're trying. And then when I come at them from a music angle, they're like, yeah, I get it. Then we hit him with Michael, who's like, yeah, I almost lost my life over this. It gets people a little more willing to join us.
How many T-shirts did you sell after that photo?
6,000 in 2 days.
Is that true?
If that doesn't tell you that people are sick of this, sorry,
just
Keith,
whatever.
but people are, because they want to make their statements in their time. And I tell you what, a lot of those people are buying those shirts and wearing them in the deep red South. That's and hell yeah,
Did he give you a share of the 6,000 T-shirts or what?
Yes,
he did. I think that speaks to who Ken Casey is and his character. But I'll tell you the story. So this was completely organic moment. I just thought about, like, what shirt could I wear to this hearing tomorrow that, and let's not forget what the hearing was. It was Jack Smith, former prosecutor, who was testifying about the investigation that he conducted as a special prosecutor into Donald Trump and his activities surrounding January 6th. And I recognize the fact that at this point, there's not a lot of attention that's being paid to this hearing. And I knew what he was going to say because I had seen his transcript from the closed-door testimony, and that was that the result of his investigation was that he believed, and he said this under oath, that they had proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump engaged in fraud, an attempt to defraud the American people, and as a result of that, we got the violence that we saw on January 6th. And I wanted as much attention paid to that, and unfortunately, we live in a social media era, and I said, well, what shirt can I wear that'll draw some attention to this hearing? And, there it was, fighting Nazis since 96. And I thought, the Republicans that are in this, hearing room, they're going to love this shirt. And so I wore it. And yes, that was a direct attack on them because they're Nazis. And so I I mean, I saw that it went viral, and there was a lot of attention paid to it, and then I wake up the next morning, I get a call from Ken, and he's like, Mike, we've completely sold out of that shirt. I don't know how many thousands of shirts. And then he would call me like another hour later, and it was like, we sold more shirts. And we got, our screen shop is looking for subcontractors to fill these orders. And
there was a ton of bootlegs too.
Every
social media, I said that's not us, So,
but we
gave a bunch to charity too, by the way.
I'm sure you did. Okay, good. By the way, we have an interesting suggestion from an anonymous texter. I don't know if it's okay with you, Ken. That 50% of all the Dropkick Murphy shirt sales in the month of May should go to cover GBH's FCC fines for this episode. Can you work? Is that something we can talk about?
My mother texted.
Michael, one last thing before you go. Hold the music for a minute. Do you hold out? I mean, we all know about the pardons. Everybody knows about the horror show in terms of how they've reacted to these insurrectionists and killers and whatever. Do you hold hope, assuming November turns out like most people expect it to be, that there'll be some accountability visited in any legal way that there is, or is this just gone?
I mean, the legal accountability is gone. The pardons are final. I mean, there's no reversing that. Mm-hmm. There's still a lot of individuals, that orchestrated this that have not been, charged criminally. But one of the reasons that I'm out here is to advocate for accountability and try to pressure, I believe in a strong two-party system. One of them, I think, right now is completely infected with a cancer. And so I'm trying to pressure Democrat lawmakers to seek accountability and prioritize that, going into the midterm elections and beyond. Because to me, I see there's, we talk about economic issues and we talk about, kitchen table issues and affordability being a real thing, which it is, despite what Donald Trump says. I see those accountability and a lack of accountability for the criminal behavior of this administration and the economic issues that we're experiencing as intertwined. And so I think that, going forward, we need to learn how to walk and chew gum at the same time and prioritize both of those issues, both economic and affordability issues and accountability for the crimes that this administration has committed. They should be top of mind.
She didn't die of hackorama. Rob Reiner was murdered. His wife is my wife. Oh, we are back on the air. Whoops. That was Michael Fanone, and I want to mention that he got a huge standing ovation from the crowd that was at the Boston Public Library because he stood up and people appreciated it. Quick break. We'll be right back talking about Spirit Airlines. What are people going to do with no more cheap flights? And do you think that you're going to be recompensed or refunded or whatever? You're going to get justice here? Because they give you points for Papa John's Pizza. I'm Marjorie in Houston Browdy. Listen to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
When something happens in the news, you want to hear about it from people you trust. Jim and Marjorie have been trusted news voices in New England for years, and for over a decade they've been right here on GBH every weekday at 11 a.m. So whatever happens out there, at the courthouse, the state house, or your hometown, you can trust Jim and Marjorie to unpack it, talk it over, and bring in an expert or two to tell you more, all without commercial interruptions, thanks to your support. So help keep the conversation going. Pitch in now by calling 888-897-9424 or giving online at gbhnews.org.
Now, let me just say, Marjorie, like a 4-year-old, all she really cares about doing is cranking the Eton Emergency Crank Radio.
Sound effects.
I have bad news and good news for you. The bad news is Digital Design on YouTube asks, when is the potato head for the pledge? That's not happening. What is happening
it's out
is
in the hallway, the potato head.
I know, but we're not. It's not a pledge gift. The Eton Emergency Crank Radio, $10 a month, $120 all at once. It is arguably, I would say it's the most useful of all of the thank you gifts in an emergency. Charges your phone, AM, FM radio, National Weather Service, LED light. If you're in a tight
and it's
spot,
small.
and it's
about
like
the size of like Benson and Hedges 100s or something.
Yeah,
they used to
no one knows what they are
Tarleton
anymore.
100 cigarettes that were
when
long.
We used to have cigarettes.
Yep.
Yeah. In any case, it's a fabulous gift, and much more important. Well, not much more importantly, relevantly, in 25 minutes, you're not going to be able to get it. So if you're interested, now's the time. $10 a month, $120 all at once. 888-897-9424. gbhnews.org. And the good news is, when we talk about pledge in another few minutes, Marjorie will be cranking yet again.
That's right. I will be cranking. I will be cranking yet again. That's absolutely right. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to BPR. Yeah, is that right? Yeah. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. You've obviously heard that budget airline Spirit is out of business. It's that low-cost, low-service airline Americans love to hate. They took it, but now that it's gone, will you miss it? And is it a harbinger of death for other low-income, low-cost flight options? Faithful Spirit customers, this is really good news, are learning the hard way what loyalty gets you. You're not, if you have points, if you had points there, you don't get nothing. If you sign up, you can get a Papa John pizza.
That's right.
For your trouble. So the lines are open to end the show. Memorial Day is 2 weeks away. How are you traveling in light of the Spirit thing and in light of the chaotic fuel prices because of Trump's war in Iran? Are you flying anyway? 45 million people will be traveling on Memorial Day, almost 4 million on planes. Are you doing a plane thing? Why? Are you doing a train, which would be Marjorie and my vehicle of choice, or a car? The number's 877-301-8970. And to make Marjorie happy, she really doesn't give a damn about the topic we're doing. What she cares about is whether or not you trade all your points for 2 Papa John pepperoni pizzas. The number's 877-301-8970.
Well,
explain how that works, please, if you would.
I don't know how it works. All I
good.
know is that,
Okay.
at Papa John's you can get the garlic epic stuffed crust pizza. And in these pizza surveys around the country, it's the 4th largest pizza company in the United States. But in a lot of these surveys, you know who comes in first?
No.
Papa John's.
Is that true?
It is the epic
Wait a second,
garlic.
I thought this is Papa John's.
That's right, but they have other companies nationwide that some are bigger than Papa John's. Like Domino's is bigger. See what I'm saying?
No.
It's a bigger.
What's the favorite?
Well, I just told you. It is the garlic epic.
No, what's the favorite pizza brand?
Oh, Papa John's.
Oh, it is?
Papa John's.
Then I totally misunderstood
You totally misunderstood. I want to point out something else.
What
this
is it,
is very
please?
important.
I think
Well,
we're
didn't know
explaining this quite well so far.
I didn't know this about Latrobe, Pennsylvania. That's where
Arnold Palmer's from there.
Arnold Palmer. You know who else is from there?
No.
Fred Rogers.
He's not.
He's absolutely from there.
Right.
And you know what else is from there?
No.
Rolling Rock beer.
Wow.
And banana splits.
What's your point?
And you know what else you used to get at the airport that was the
Spirit
only one
Airline.
that was served exclusively by Spirit Airlines? Free parking.
Okay, we got to focus this thing.
Okay, just want to point that out.
I know, that was very
Latrobe
helpful
has suffered a
information.
big loss.
How many of our listeners do you think are from Latrobe or give a damn about Latrobe losing all its flights? Anybody? Is Winnie Palmer still around? I don't think so. Don't worry about it.
Before gas got so high, you could drive from here to Latrobe, get free parking,
I'll be doing that
and
soon.
fly out of Latrobe,
Okay,
Pennsylvania.
fine. So here's
home
the deal.
of Fred Rogers.
Since Marjorie failed on her
and banana
assignment,
splits.
if you have points on Spirit, we're not 100% sure if you get totally screwed. I think you do. You lose your points, I think. But what you can do is you sign up in some fashion on Papa John's website, and you can trade your remaining points
right.
for a pizza or something
And you had
like
to
that.
become a
How do
Papa
you feel
John's
about
reward
that?
customer. Here's their
Fine.
slogan. Papa John's is stepping in to offer a soft landing with skies to pies.
Okay.
Because when travel plans fall apart, pizza plans should not.
Okay, I'd like to say this, too, to get
thought
this
that was
back
very
on
moving.
track, so to speak.
They also have the Shakaroni pizza, which I think is
fine.
named for Shaquille O'Neal.
You think so? Well, you don't know that, so don't say it. Now, here's the deal. If someone said to me, you can either fly somewhere in 2 hours, not counting going to the airport, waiting for 3 hours, your flight's delayed, and then you get there, you got to take a cab or an Uber or a Lyft for $89 into the city. 2-hour flight or a 10-hour train ride, I take the 10-hour train ride.
Me too.
I would take
It's very
Amtrak
pleasant.
in a second. No more driving. Gas is insane, and plus you got to drive yourself, or someone you know has got to drive you. Planes are a nightmare for like 40 reasons. Take the train. So we have about 1,000 topics on the air, none of which you're interested in. One, if you're a Spirit airline, if you were a Spirit airline flyer, our whole team this morning had flown Spirit airline. Well, they were anyway. How do you feel about the fact you can trade your points that you earned as a loyal Spirit customer for a pizza? And secondly, are you now hesitant to do the budget airlines because you're worried you're going to buy tickets that's going under? Now, by the way, if you have a credit card or one of those things, theoretically, they're going to refund your airfare on the credit card. I'll believe it when I see it. We don't know. But those are the issues on the table.
Yeah, and in Forbes, just last year, Spirit cited as the best airline overall, most affordable, safest, according to...
It's got the worst customer service rating. How's that possible?
That's because they don't spend money on frills. Customer service is terrible. Water's not free. You got to pay for water.
One of the frills, by the way, they don't spend money on.
Water.
No pilot, by the way. That's another issue. You save a lot of money. Unfortunately, you can't get from here to there. 877-301.
We have a little good sound from my favorite movie, Airplane, involving pilots.
Okay, go ahead, play the sound, sure.
This is from the 1980 movie Airplane, one of my favorites. And this is about the chaos. This is not a Spirit airline flight, but inside the cockpit between the pilot and air traffic controller and the co-pilot. Here it is.
Cleared for takeoff.
Roger. Huh?
LA departure frequency 123.9er.
Roger. Huh? Request vector. Over. What?
Flight 209er, clear for vector 324.
We have clearance, Clarence. Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Now, you and I are the only two people laughing at this, by the way. But that's okay. Now, Marjorie and I have totally ruined this whole discussion. So here are your choices. You can talk about how you feel about budget airlines in general in the wake of Spirit going under. If you're a Spirit customer and want to talk about your experience, that's fine. If you want to talk about Papa John's Pizza is an alternative to getting your points,
you get garlic
your loyalty
sauce
points.
too.
You do? On
That's
the side?
a regular. You get the garlic sauce on the side. That's a big thing too. And you can pour it or not pour it all over your pizza. By the way, one of our texters says that they are in fact flying to Portugal, and they may never come back.
Really?
Yeah, they've had
that's
it.
very sad.
They have
okay,
had it.
now Marjorie, this is where you say we'll be right back to take your calls.
Oh, we'll be right back to take your calls.
Thank you.
Quick break for pledge, and we will return to talk about pizza,
Really
Latrobe.
We're not talking about Latrobe anymore. We're really not talking about Latrobe anymore.
Fred Rogers and Arnold Palmer and banana splits.
No, we're not doing it.
Live, local, 5 days a week. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, Boston Public Radio. It's here on GBH Radio because of your support. Now's your chance to keep the conversation going. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Okay, we are very grateful to people that have donated up to this point in the pledge drive, and we're very grateful for people who might donate in the next 17 minutes, because the Eton crank radio, which I'm cranking right now, is only available to then. Holly from Tewksbury says, Marjorie, I'm getting your Eton crank radio, and you'll receive your points. And I do want to get the extra points that we'll get if we give away more of these during the
not give away. If
we're
people
not giving
pledge
away.
on our show, Marjorie's under the misunderstanding.
No, you don't.
Something
give them
good
away.
happens to us if we raise a lot of money.
Jim, you're wrong about that. I've heard that from our colleagues. That's the deal. That if we do well between 11 and 1, it's very important for us.
What's the phone number if you want to contribute?
888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
That's it for you?
Yes.
This is a fabulous gift. I think I've been pretty honest with you. I have to say, some of the thank you gifts come up a little short. Not this cycle. In the past, I'm talking about. I've never been into the fanny pack, I must admit. Has limited utility, at least in terms of my fanny and that sort of thing. But this is a really, really good and useful gift.
Yeah.
And if you're worried, get it for your kid, by the way. You're worried your kid's going to go late at night in an old jalopy, the car's going to break down. You have the damn thing
It's
here.
got a very big antenna on it,
So
too.
what?
Well, that's important for reception.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Whatever you can contribute, we thank you. Welcome back to BPR on 89.7 GBH. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Marjorie has totally destroyed this whole segment, so I'm going to take over if you don't mind. The prompt for this was Spirit went under.
They did.
We didn't talk about that. But then when we found the way, because I asked Marjorie, what's going to happen if you have points? Like, I have a lot of points on Delta. So I was saying, what if an airline goes out of business? We found out that one of the things you can do with your points, this is the loyalty they show to you by you being a loyalty points member, is you can get a pizza. You don't get your flight, I guess, but you get your pizza. Theoretically, they're going to reimburse your credit card. I don't know about that. So how do you feel about low budget stuff? If you've ever flown Spirit, neither of us have. We'd like to know what your experience was. And thirdly, what Marjorie really cares about, other than the emergency crank radio, Eton, is how you feel about Papa John pizza. You ever had one?
No.
Nor have I.
It's the fourth biggest in the nation, and one of our texters sent us that. Domino's is the biggest in the country.
Oh, can I correct a mistake I made earlier in the show? And thanks for the texter. I'm really embarrassed. We had Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett at the end of the segment on GLP-1s. We were talking about hantavirus, that rodent thing. And I mentioned, I really apologize for this. I mentioned that Rob Reiner's wife died from it. Obviously, she allegedly was killed by their son. It was Gene Hackman's wife. When Gene Hackman and she both were found dead, Hackman's wife had hantavirus. My apologies for getting the facts wrong. 877-301-8970. Chris in Pawtucket, welcome to the show. Hi. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
Hello. How are you? Okay, good. He's obviously eating a pizza instead of talking to us.
Steve from Waltham wants to know if he could exchange his Spirit airline points for an Eton crank radio.
No, actually, thank you. I don't think that got a drum roll. But in any case, Robin Hudson, you're next. Hello, Rob. Oh, 2 for 2.
Hello.
Obviously, we have a phone problem. This we're doomed.
Here's Bob and Seacock.
Wait, Rob, are you there or you're not there? Okay, sorry. Don't hang up, everybody. We're fixing whatever the problem is.
Rob in Seacock says he saw airplane in Boston while at Northeastern a long time ago, 1980. He said 2 scenes got a standing ovation. Number 1, when the plane flew too low and knocked the disco station off the air. And number 2, when Robert Stack was fending off all the people trying to hand out those pamphlets. Now, Robert Stack had another important role in Seacock, as we all in Airplane.
Untouchables.
As we all know, he played in the Untouchables. That is right. He was Elliot Ness.
He was
in the Untouchables.
TV, yeah.
But he also apparently had a multiple drug addiction problem in the
Robert
comedy
Stack did?
Airline.
In
Airline.
Yeah.
Not the real Robert Stack,
Okay.
the actor.
Yeah.
And here is my favorite off-quoted refrain from the classic 1980 comedy Airplane, Robert Stack.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit smoking. Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit drinking. Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit amphetamines. Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Okay, except for I have the fact I had the wrong guy. It was Lloyd Bridges, not Robert Stack. You remember what
Why
Lloyd...
had the wrong person getting hantavirus too? So.
Remember what Lloyd Bridges? He played a scuba diver.
Yeah, he was underwater show.
Yeah, what was it called?
Underwater. It was called Underwater.
John, do you remember what it was called with Lloyd Bridges, the underwater show?
Sea Hunt.
Sea Hunt.
Yeah.
John, I knew you'd remember that. Yeah. Sea Hunt. He was great in that.
Can I ask listeners?
That was before he was smoking a lot of glue,
who are fond of us
glue.
A favor? Don't call our bosses about this segment because we are really not earning our living in this particular segment. But let's try to get back on track.
Was Robert Stack in Airplane?
He was an Airplane.
He was an Airplane. Okay.
So was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
That's right. It had a great.
Yeah.
It was a great cast.
Yeah. We're not talking about that, though. Let's go to Chris in Pawtucket. Maybe this time he'll say something to us. Hi, Chris.
Can you guys hear me this time?
Yes,
perfectly.
Thank you.
We're so thrilled. Hello. Welcome back.
Fantastic.
Yeah, what's up?
Good to talk to you guys again.
You too,
Not too much. I wanted to call just because I'm not going to be traveling for Memorial Day, but I'm actually moving from Rhode Island to North Carolina.
You are?
Yes. And so the reason I wanted to call is because these prices have gotten absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. So I was planning on just shipping my car, right? They were going to pick up the car, put it on a tractor trailer, bring it down.
That.
And I reserved it before the war began, and it was $1,500. And I'm like, all right, that's a little, steep to begin with, but happy days, no wear and tear on the car.
Yeah.
After the war, They were supposed to pick it up today. They called me 2 days ago and said it was going to be $3,000.
Oh, my God. That is...
Wow.
So what are you doing? That is unbelievable.
Well, I made the snap decision. I figure, you know what, instead of, piling everything into my wife's car and driving the car down together, we now are driving two separate cars. I drive a Prius, and so it's going to cost me probably $250 for gas.
That is
and
unbelievable
so I was like, $250 versus $3,000, but isn't that wild?
It is wild. Now, Chris, I don't know you well enough to propose this, but I'm going to do it anyway because you seem like a nice guy. Instead of moving to North Carolina, have you and your wife thought about moving to Latrobe or no?
The banana splits are good enough everywhere else. I think I can. I think I'll
live without it. Well, then I respect your
Yeah.
decision. Good luck. By the way, you can still stream the show. We hope you stay in touch and keep listening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Listen to this one.
What about
Spirit
it?
Airlines canceled my flight because a flight attendant called out sick and they couldn't find another flight attendant.
That's not true.
To replace the one that was sick. And then Frontier Airline canceled my route a week before my trip. Budget airlines, always a gamble.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for older listeners on the show, there used to be something called People Express.
Yes.
Which when I first moved here, I used to commute to New York City several days a week. You know how much each direction was? $19.
I remember that.
And they created a verb. Do you remember what the verb was that they invented? Beverage. We will be beveraging people in the cabin now. And you had to pay for everything, obviously, because the flight was only $19. And this is a true story because it was the ultimate budget airline. Have I told you this before? Every single time it landed, I probably took it 100 times. People applauded spontaneously on the plane because they were so shocked that we made it.
Okay.
What's your point?
Here's a couple of them. Bridget from Brockton. I flew Spirit 3 or 4 times and was just as miserable there as on any other airline.
That's nice.
And then Billy in Eastie. I flew Spirit one time, round trip to Florida. The worst experience ever.
nice.
Seats were glorified plastic chairs. Service was terrible. I had a huge hangover on the return trip, although the last part might not have been their fault.
Okay, and now you can get a Papa John's pizza instead. Alan in Centerville, you're next. Hi. Wait, Alan actually flew Spirit. What's up, Alan?
Yes, I actually flew Spirit.
And
it was like, it was a great experience. It was from Las Vegas to Florida.
Oh.
And it turned out it was like a school bus because everybody on the bus, except for me, was a little kid. It must have been a school or a camp was transporting all the kids. And it was great until the beverage came around and they were going to give the beverages and they only take credit cards. So all these kids on there, okay, I want potato chips, I want Coke. Oh, but they wouldn't take the money.
Oh, my God.
So these 3 and 4-year-old kids started crying. So there's 30 or 40 kids no, my mommy gave me this money. My mommy gave me the money.
that is a wonderful story, Alan. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Budget airline, there you go.
It was heartwarming, actually. That was beautiful.
You insulted me for talking about Latrobe, Pennsylvania,
I did.
home of
I
Arnold
did. I
Palmer,
did insult you.
Fred Rogers, the Banana Split, and Rolling Rock Beer.
Rolling Rock Beer.
Well, we just got a text from someone who says their 60th high school reunion
Is in Latrobe?
going to take place in September at the airport in Latrobe.
Really? That's great. Unfortunately, you can't get there now. So you won't be attending anything.
Well, he might be a local Latrobian. He may have grown up there.
We have our ratings in Latrobe are 0. I checked during the show. We do not have one Latrobe resident. We had 3 at the beginning of the segment, and the 3 of them took their money back from Pledge, and that was it. Marty, do you know the show's over?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all those great stories about Spirit Airline.
Yeah.
That was very great. And we thank Michael Fanone.
That's a great
still
segment.
not get over that.
It's online if you
interview with
missed it or
him.
want to hear it again.
Okay, thank you very much for listening
Yep.
to another edition of Boston Public Radio. Keep up this 24/7 by way of our podcast or our terrific TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow, we're going to be live at the Boston Public Library. The Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Andrea Joy Campbell, is going to be with us. We're going to talk a lot about the ballot questions, and as usual, she'll take our questions and your questions via text or in person at the library.
There's
or
a phone, too. Yeah.
Yep, phone too. Okay, and we're going to have a recovery panel with Woody Geisman and Chris Herron, big basketball star from my hometown, Durfee High School guy, went to play for the Celtics. Our crew, Zoe Matthews, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, Ariana Gonzalez. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Thank you, John, for fixing everything over and over again. Our executive producer is Jane Bologna.
By the way, you didn't say Woody Geisman was the drummer for the Del Fuegos.
I should have said that.
They're a huge basketball
I should have
star
said
and a
that.
huge
Yep.
music star. Now turn to addiction recovery.
Our stream wizard today was by Colin Cockrell, and thanks to him. Stay tuned to the Curiosity Desk with Edgar B. Hurt III, starting immediately after us on 897 GBH.
I don't even want to know she's laughing about. When Marjorie starts laughing, you know that you don't want to know.
I can't say some of these things on the air.
That's good, Marjorie. Then don't. Let's By the way, the Eton emergency, whatever, is gone in 5.5 minutes, so get with it.
I'm Marjorie Egan.
Good.
Thank you for tuning in.
I'm Jim Browdy. We're going to be broadcasting live from Latrobe the rest of the week, so please tune in, and there'll be a Pennsylvania feel to the show. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
This is the GBH Spring Membership Drive, and today we're asking you to make your contributions so we can continue reporting the facts and holding our leaders accountable. This is an important membership drive as we work to fund the future of GBH and ensure it remains on the air and freely available to all. It's easy to do at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424. I'm Maeve Buckley, and I'm joined by Melissa Jones.
As Jim was just mentioning, we've got the fabulous Eton Emergency Radio available to you right now. It goes away in just 4.5 minutes. So don't delay. Make sure you give $10 a month right now. We'll send you the Eton Emergency Radio. It's AM, FM radio, national weather radio channels. It charges your phone. It has a little flashlight. It's the best thing ever. If you don't have one, you have to have one right now. Just take my word for it. And you can get one when you give $10 a month right now in the next 4 minutes. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
That's right. 4 minutes to go in the hour and in the show. And also, that is just 4 minutes left to reach our goal. We have 12 more people we're looking to hear from. 12 people to go to wrap up today's Boston Public Radio. You and 11 others coming together to support all of your listening in the months ahead. Please contribute what you can. Help pay for the news and information you can always trust and rely on. All gifts are welcome and make a huge difference here. 12 more people in the next 4 minutes. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
Every day, GBH brings you trusted news, meaningful conversations, and stories that matter. Please know that we are not funded by billionaires or beholden to shareholders. Instead, we are powered by you, our listeners. Your financial support keeps us independent, accountable, and focused on what truly matters to our community. Please give now to fund the future of radio that you can trust, because here, you're the most important stakeholder. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And time is running out to get that Eton Emergency Radio. Just about 3 minutes left to go to ask for this as our thanks for your contribution. $10 per month as a sustaining member or $120 all at once. It's one of our most popular thank you gifts. We want to send it your way as our thanks for that contribution. Support your Boston Public Radio listening. Ask for the Eton Radio. Again, the deadline's coming up at 1 o'clock, so just a few minutes left to go. But if you get that call started or online gift started, you can get it. 888-897-9424. You can also check out what the Eton looks like when you make that gift online at gbhnews.org.
If you've never given to GBH before, how about making a contribution as a sustaining member right now? It's a quick and easy thing to do, and when you become a member of GBH, you are part of the community that powers everything that you find and listen to here on GBH. Be a part of the community right now by going online at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Please support GBH by becoming a monthly sustainer. This is the best way to support the station, especially now. A recurring gift of $10 or $15 per month means we aren't living pledge drive to pledge drive. It takes just a few minutes to set up, and it's automatically deducted from your bank account or credit card, and you'll be enrolled in no time. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
We're making amazing progress on our goal. We're now down to just 6 more people to go in the next couple of minutes to make sure that we make this hour's goal, which means we stay on track for this pledge drive, which means we know that we can continue bringing you the programming you expect and deserve here on GBH. 6 more people in just the next couple of minutes. Give online at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And this is it. This is the last call, last chance to get the Eton Emergency Radio as our thanks for your contribution of just $10 per month as a sustaining member or a one-time gift of $120 all at once. That deadline is coming up, but if you get that call started or that online gift started, it will count. You'll be supporting your Boston Public Radio listening in the months ahead and getting this Swiss Army knife of radios against one of our most popular thank you gifts. Get that call started by calling 888-897-9424 or make your gift online easy to do there. Hit the donate button at gbhnews.org.
From the stories of centuries past to discoveries that will define our future, How Did We Get Here's, how-tos, and more. Journey with us down the rabbit hole on the Curiosity Desk. Coming up next on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you and the University of Massachusetts Amherst. UMass, the state's flagship public research university, empowers students to be the future in the pursuit of progress for Massachusetts and beyond. More at umass.edu. And PNC Bank, who believes when you pay attention to the details, amazing things can happen. Like when you check the pockets of a jacket you haven't worn since last fall and find $20. PNC Bank. Brilliantly boring since 1865.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, the first World Cup matches kick off 1 month from today. Is Boston ready to play host? Well, it depends on who you ask. Our friends down in Philly have a game plan that's got some folks around here feeling, to put it mildly, envious. Not so mildly, yeah, they're eating our lunch the way the Sixers did to the Celtics last month. Then, if you've got a teenager at home, you know that prom season is upon us. Why do we do this dance every spring? We talk history, traditions, and if there was ever a time that teenage boys' tuxedos actually fit. And you asked, we've got answers on the etymological origins of the phrase wicked pissa, with the hosts from Away with Words.
Has very little to do with the bodily functions, a lot more to do about the wham and the bam.
Wham bam, this hour on the Curiosity Desk.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump embarks on a high-stakes state visit to China this week. He and President Xi Jinping are likely to focus heavily on the U.S. war with Iran, where China has deep economic ties. Today, President Trump roundly dismissed Iran's counterproposal to the U.S.'s plan for ending hostilities.
It was just unacceptable. You know, a lot of people said, well, does he have a plan? Yeah, of course they do have the best plan ever. I mean, Iran has been defeated militarily, totally. They have a little left. They probably built up during this period of time. We'll knock that out in about a day. But I have a plan. You know, it is a very simple plan. I don't know why you don't say it like it is. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Trump speaking during a White House event on maternal health and the launch of the resource website moms.gov. The man accused of trying to assassinate Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner last month pleaded not guilty to the charges. Cole Allen entered his plea at a hearing in federal court today. Here's NPR's Ryan Lucas.
The 31-year-old faces 4 counts, including trying to assassinate the President of the United States. At his arraignment, Allen was in shackles and an orange prison outfit. He stood at the podium as his attorneys entered a plea of not guilty to the charges against him. Prosecutors say Allen traveled from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. by train and booked a room at the same hotel where the White House Correspondents' Dinner takes place. Allen then allegedly tried to storm the dinner with a shotgun and other weapons, but was stopped at the outer perimeter by Secret Service agents. He is scheduled to be back in court in late June. Ryan Lucas, NPR News, Washington.
18 Americans from a cruise ship stricken by a hantavirus outbreak are back in the U.S. Most are quarantined at a health facility in Nebraska. 2 have been transferred to Atlanta. 1 American has tested positive for the Andes strain of the hantavirus. NPR's Windsor Johnston reports misinformation about the virus is spreading on sites such as TikTok and Instagram.
Some social media users are falsely comparing hantavirus to COVID-19 and promoting unproven treatments, fueling confusion and fear. Dr. Seema Yasmin is a physician and epidemiologist at Stanford University. She says uncertainty often creates the perfect conditions for misinformation.
In a knowledge vacuum, people fill that space with any information that they can get their hands on, whether it's accurate or inaccurate.
Yasmin says people should rely on trusted public health sources. They say transmission is associated with prolonged close contact, and the risk to the general public is considered very low. Windsor Johnston, NPR News.
From Washington, this is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A couple of high-powered Massachusetts lawmakers are headed to the Vatican. The Globe reports House Ways and Means Chair Aaron Michaelwitz and House Majority Leader Mike Moran leave Boston tomorrow and are scheduled to speak about environmental legislation and climate change resiliency once they arrive in Rome and head to the Vatican. They'll be joined by UMass Boston Chancellor Marcelo Suarez Orozco. The meetings will likely take place at the home of the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences. And thrifters on Nantucket Island are flocking to 17 India Street today for a spring tradition that's been going on for some 97 years. The Nantucket Current reports it's the opening of the hospital thrift shop that sells donated goods to support Nantucket Cottage Hospital. Donations have been pouring in over the off-season, and residents say opening day is a time to find some great deals, and lines are sometimes around the block. Last year, the hospital thrift shop, which is open from mid-May through mid-October, donated a record $660,000 to the hospital. In sports, Monday Night Baseball, Seattle at Houston, Giants at the Dodgers, NBA playoffs, Detroit at Cleveland, and Oklahoma City at L.A., and playoff hockey continues, Colorado at Minnesota. In the forecast, we are looking at mostly cloudy this afternoon, high mid-60s, cloudy low 40s overnight, sunny and 60 tomorrow. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include United States Postal Service, dedicated to putting reliability at the core of USPS Ground Advantage to help businesses operate smoothly. More at USPS.com/Ground Advantage.
Welcome to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Well, check those calendars. We are a month away from the first matches of the World Cup, when people from around the world are going to flock to cities here like LA, New York, Philadelphia, and yes, Boston. So as we gear up for one of the biggest international sporting events in the world, we want to answer the question, is Boston ready? And how are we shaping up beside our peers in those other cities? Well, with us in studio, we're joined by GBH reporter Esteban Bustillos, who's been covering the World Cup here in Boston, and over Zoom, Jonathan Tannenwald, a soccer reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer, who wrote a piece recently, I would say essentially dragging our city's name through the mud, but, you know, in fairness, also New York's, kind of touting some of the prep that's going on in Philadelphia by comparison. Jonathan, Esteban, welcome to the Curiosity Desk. Thanks for having you both here.
Hello. Thank you. And hold on just a second. I've got a lot of relatives up in the Boston area.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
I'm not going to drag your fair city, as we like to say, all the way through the mud.
Now, there he is dropping some real Boston knowledge right off the gate.
Especially as a longtime NPR fan. I'm not going to do that on this station. So, yeah.
Well, thank you,
it's
Jonathan.
great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. Esteban, I want to start with you, ask you just like the very broad question. I mean, is Boston ready? We got a month to go. Do we feel like we're there?
They're more ready than they were about, a month and a half ago when we didn't know if there was going to be money for the security for these games. Like, you know, so I guess one of the big things that I was saying about, you know, about this piece and just about the issue overall, the World Cup, Boston is a host city. The World Cup is not in Boston. It is at Gillette Stadium, which will be called Boston Stadium for the games because of FIFA's very strict advertising policies. It's in Foxborough, super small town. And for a while, they're just like, hey, who's paying for security? Because we're not paying for security. We can't afford to pay for security. And so they finally got that fixed at the 11th hour, and they granted the entertainment license. But I think it's been very indicative of overall this sort of feeling of like, oh, yeah, the World Cup is here. What are we going to do? And, you know, if you look outside right now, there's no real indications. You know, we're looking outside here in Brighton, Allston area. You'd have no idea the World Cup is about a month away here in Boston. I can't speak. I'm sure, Jonathan, that in Philly, it may be a different situation.
Yeah, well, let's turn to you, Jonathan. Go ahead.
It is a very different situation in Philadelphia. And I think one of the reasons why this is something that I've been reflecting on recently, is how long the buildup to this has really been. The United States first bid to host a men's World Cup that they first thought was going to be in 2018, with a bidding process that started in 2007. It's been 19 years.
Wow.
The national buildup to all of this. And they were going to host 2018, and they shifted to 2022. They put a lot into that. Did not get it. Qatar got it, controversially, as we all know now. And so they shifted focus to 2026. And one of the things that I heard in the buildup to that process and to the selection of host cities, and gentlemen, you guys might remember this, Boston was out of that.
Yeah.
For quite a while, and only really came back in the closing days, weeks, and even days of all of it. Yeah. To the point where when they were picked as a host city, some people I know were a bit surprised.
Really?
And so Philadelphia has been at this for 2026 specifically for longer. It is all within the city limits, which is a huge dynamic that you don't have in Boston and Foxborough, New York and New Jersey, and San Francisco and Santa Clara, by way of example. It does make a difference. It makes, I think, a much bigger difference than I think some people are willing to admit for something as big as the Foxborough, the town council, I forget what the exact name of it is, holding the line on making sure that they didn't have to pay for security, to something that is as big or as small, depending on your perspective, as the MBTA line to Foxborough being a commuter rail line, so having a pricing structure that's completely different from the city subway in Philadelphia that goes to the football stadium here.
So let's talk about transportation a little bit, because I think that is one of the things when I look at, kind of the plans in Philadelphia and what it looks like the experience is going to be like and what it's going to look like here. So commuter rail line is going to cost what? Esteban? Yeah, $80.
Usually $20 for events at Boston Stadium, again, in quotation marks.
And I'll say very quickly, Esteban, the thing with the not taking the sponsors' names off stadiums at World Cups, that's been a tradition with FIFA for many, many, many years. It's not just for this tournament. They've done, for your listeners who may not know, this is not new. That part of it is not unusual.
100%. It's still FIFA being FIFA. So I do like to chide him on that a little bit. But yes.
So $80, and this is, and again, Esteban, you point out, Foxborough is a small town. However, this is the stadium where the Patriots play, however many games they play each year. It is the stadium where, when Taylor Swift plays this area, somebody like Taylor Swift plays. So, the idea that there are huge sort of world-shaking events happening in Foxborough is not that unusual.
Right. Well, and a big problem is, they're basically expecting at or near sellout crowds for every game down in Foxborough. The getting there by train is going to be expensive. Getting there by any sort of method is already expensive. If you want to drive, there are only going to be 5,000 parking spots. That's 15,000 fewer than usual because of mostly security concerns. They need they have to have certain sections warded off security and events there at the stadium. So it is going to be a mess. And again, I'm sure down at Lincoln Financial, that's
Philadelphia Stadium going for the soccer game.
That's a much different situation.
Well, Jonathan, can you sketch out for us? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
It is and it isn't, because a security perimeter is also a traditional feature of a World Cup. There's nothing new at a World Cup about the idea that you can't get within a half mile of what we think of as the entry gate, usually for a football game. You can't get anywhere close to it at a World Cup. That's nothing new anywhere in the world either. And that part of it, that specific part of it, the security perimeter, I have no problem with. I never have. I think a lot of people who are used to going to World Cups don't have too much of a problem with it either. Where the problem comes down, for international soccer fans in particular, is they are used to, in Europe, in Asia, and South America, and most of the rest of the world, where they don't have cars and they don't drive everywhere. They're used to getting on a train specifically to go to a game. Yeah. Whether it was in Sydney, Australia for the Women's World Cup 3 years ago, whether it's in France or England or Germany, or whether it was when it was in Qatar, in 2022, whether it's in Japan, you name it, taking a train is a standard feature for a lot of the rest of the world. And I know it is in Boston, in the city of Boston, to go to a Sox game, to go to a Bruins game at the arena or the Celtics game or whatever, as it is here in Philadelphia to go down Broad Street to get to a Phillies game or any other team that might have played a Boston team recently. And I'm not from Philadelphia in the first place, so I'm not going to go down that road because my teams where I'm from in DC mostly stink.
Wizards just got the #1 pick. That's good, yeah.
It makes no sense to me, but that's for a whole
That's a
other
different
thing.
segment, yeah.
Look, no, but again, it's a standard feature. Look, it's a standard feature taking the Metro in Washington too, to baseball and basketball and even soccer games. The Patriot Stadium, as with the Giant Stadium in New Jersey, is the exception here.
Yeah.
Right? It's not the norm. If the World Cup games were at Fenway, not that they would be, obviously, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah.
It's the fact that the public transit to Foxborough specifically is what it is. I've taken it before to go to Revolution games. A couple of years ago when they played the Philadelphia Union in the playoffs, one of the two games I went up there for, one was on a Wednesday. I was able to take the train right to the stadium. One was on a Saturday, and I couldn't. I had to take it to, I forget what the name of the station was. It was somewhere on another line that was probably a 5-mile Uber ride away, and that's what I did.
Yeah. By contrast, though, Jonathan, as you point out, it's a little bit different in Philadelphia because you've got the sports complex in South Philly, which is, 5-6 miles from Center City. And you already, that's kind of an inner city subway line. But what is it going to cost somebody to get from Center City, Philadelphia down to the stadium, where it's going to be $80 if you're going from Boston to Foxborough here? What's it going to cost in Philly?
You really want to know?
We do. Kind of.
Okay, just making sure.
All right.
$2.90, and it's going to cost you nothing coming home.
Really?
Because the public transit agency here signed a sponsorship deal with Airbnb, which is one of FIFA's sponsors, to cover the cost of pay for the cost of the rides out of the stadium. So the gates will be open right when you get to the station.
Wow.
Now, this is something where I've gotten in arguments with social media with people about this.
People don't argue on social media, Jonathan. It's a place where people are very kind to each other.
I understand why you'd want to be a purist and say that a private company shouldn't be subsidizing the public transit, and what are they going to ask for from the city council, favors in return down the road or whatever. I get all that. It's a World Cup. It's completely different from anything else. And when you have people coming in from everywhere else and their abiding memory is I had to pay $80 and stand in line for 2 hours for the train to get down there.
Yeah.
As much as they may know and love about the city of Boston and want to come back there and walk around on the river and downtown and in Cambridge and everything else that everybody loves about the place, if that's their abiding memory, it does not help. And if I lived in Massachusetts or if I lived in New Jersey where they did magically, the tickets, they were going to be $150 for the train, and they magically found some corporate sponsorship revenue to knock it down to $105 after Philadelphia had made its announcement. I don't think New Jersey likes getting embarrassed by Philadelphia all that much if they don't have to be. And I think if I lived in Massachusetts, I might be asking why the MBTA couldn't do the same thing in some form.
You listen to the Curiosity Desk. We're talking with GBH's Esteban Bustillos and Jonathan Tannenwald from the Philly Inquirer about World Cup preps. Well, I think we say this all the time and we don't really take it to heart, but like these are host cities, right? That word host is in there. And I wonder, just in general, Jonathan, you cover soccer. You're a soccer aficionado. You point out this is an enormous international event. These are cities that are hosting people from around the world. Are we missing a trick here? Like, what are your feelings in terms of, are we doing this wrong?
Look, I think the easiest way for me to answer that is there's a lot of things that are being done wrong with the hosting of this.
Yeah.
In Boston and elsewhere.
Such as?
I'm a sports writer.
Yeah.
Stick to sports, they tell me, right?
Yep.
We know we all know. Anybody who looks out the window or listens to the news at the top of the hour here on GBH or picks up a copy of the Globe or the Inquirer or whatever, we all know. We all know what's going on in the world these days. We might even get to some of that. But no, there is a lot we're doing wrong, I think, relative to how other countries host World Cups specifically, what they can do for a country, what they can do culturally. One of the reasons why Philadelphia is so enthusiastic about hosting this World Cup and is putting so much into doing a good job. Well, first of all, they're getting a lot of private financing. That certainly helps.
Yeah.
But if you look around the other cities that are hosting in the United States, Boston, New York, Atlanta, Miami, Houston, Dallas, Seattle, LA, the Bay Area, Kansas City, most of those, Boston included, are already globally recognized cities in some form. They have their moments on the global stage on a regular basis, whether it be through education, sport, medicine, whatever it may be. Philadelphia's never had a moment on the global stage like what they're about to have in this World Cup. They know it. They want to make the most of it. And so they're putting everything they can into making the most of it and having it go well. And I think that Philadelphia and Kansas City are the two of the U.S. host cities that are really going to have a moment on the global stage, the likes of which they've never had before here. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I mean, Kansas City has even bigger infrastructural challenges because they have next to no public transit. But I don't think it's a coincidence that those are two cities that are putting so much into this moment because they know how big an opportunity it is for them.
Thoughts on that, Esteban? What can Boston take from that, if anything?
I think
with a month to go.
I mean, the biggest problem Boston faced, you know, the Globe sort of did a version of Jonathan's story. At the bottom, they had the distance from the fan fest where the actual fans would take. Boston's distance, 28 miles. San Francisco Bay Area Stadium, we were just there for the Super Bowl. It's about 45 miles. And that's just a difference of like how cities are built here in the U.S., where stadiums are built. Whereas opposed to like Europe, the rest of the world, they know they do it a little bit better. It's a little bit more in neighborhoods, but this is just not the case. It's decades of infrastructure that is not really built up for something like this.
All right.
And I'm not saying that the Patriots ought to play in downtown Boston. I'm not saying that's the best use of the land around there.
Yeah.
By any means. But with a World Cup, the kinds of people who you want to attract, at least, obviously the ticket prices and visa restrictions and all that have turned off a lot of international visitors. We know that. But in theory, the people who who would be coming to your city for these games and then leaving 5 days later, and you want them to come back. And I'm no huge fan of FIFA with the ticket prices. I'm no huge fan of a lot of things that are going on with this, to be sure. I've written about that a lot. But when you're a World Cup host city, again, as you've said, host is the key word. You want it to be a good experience for them. You want to put on a good show so that they will remember it fondly and then come back as tourists on vacation in future years, which I've had the privilege of, to some of the European cities that I've had the privilege of going to, you know, to big games before in the past. I keep going back to them because of the enjoyable experience that I've had over the years.
All right, there you go. We're going to have to leave it there. We've been speaking with GBH's Esteban Bustillos and the Philadelphia Inquirers' Jonathan Tannenwald about the World Cup. Thank you both for being with us here on the Curiosity Desk. All right, coming up, it's a special time of year, and we have a question for you. Will you go to the prom with us? We're going to get into the history and origins of this famed high school tradition in just a moment. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk, where we answer your questions. We turn these little wonderings into in-depth conversations with voices across different fields. Unique listener-driven shows like ours only exist with listener support. Your support. Consider supporting the Curiosity Desk today and help continue these insightful and wonderful investigations into the unknown. Call 888-897-9424 or visit gbhnews.org.
That's 888-897-9424 if you want to do it on the phone, or gbhnews.org online. This is the Curiosity Desk. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III, and right now we are in the fabled, the mythic dollar for dollar match. Yes, that means that your gift right now is being supercharged. This is thanks to a group of Beacon Circle patrons, and for every dollar that you kick in right now, they're also going to kick in $1. So your gift of $100 becomes $200. Your gift of $10 a month becomes $20 a month over the course of the entire year. 888-897-9424 is the number. gbhnews.org if you want to do it online. And with me in studio right now to help talk to you about this unique opportunity is Patty Daniels from GBH News.
Edgar, glad to be here with you. The thing I love about a Monday and a dollar-for-dollar match on a Monday is that it's the day of the week when you just really want to get stuff done. You want to set yourself up for a successful 5 days. And this is how we're doing it with our pledge drive. And your gift now will go towards that dollar-for-dollar match. The Curiosity Desk has been brightening up our afternoons since February. It has been a place for lifelong learners to understand the stories behind the stories in the news, history, science, taking important events and breaking them down. That's what we rely on the Curiosity Desk for, and that's what we rely on you for, which is supporting programming like this.
That's right. We can't do it without you. And hey, the beautiful thing is making a contribution during this drive does not take long at all. We just need a little contact information from you. And whether you're signing up as a sustainer or making a one-time gift, that gift right now, today, is being matched dollar for dollar. Again, when we know that when we ask you to, of your own volition, dig into your pocket and make a contribution, you're doing it because you want to make an impact. Well, there's no better time to have an impact than now because you're going to be having twice the impact. It's like a nice, strong cup of coffee for a Monday for your gift. 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
Edgar, a few of the people we've already heard from in the drive, Peggy in Wayland, Sandra in Marshfield, Tyler in Milton, have all called in with their support for the Curiosity Desk.
Hey, we love that.
I want to mention Judith in Wayland. She says it's the best programs, the news that is longer and more detailed, great stories, great shows. I love absolutely everything. The hosts on GBH are the best. She gives a long list here, but Edgar, your name is right in the middle of it.
Oh, hey. All right. Thank you so much.
These kinds of notes really fuel us and keep us energized to keep bringing you great programming. The other thing we need to keep bringing you great programming is your listener support.
That's right. 888-897-9424 if you want to make that contribution over the phone. You could do it online at gbhnews.org. Dollar for dollar match if you do it now. And thanks. You are listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Well, got a kid in high school. The last few weeks may have been preoccupied with things like dress shopping, tux rentals, hair appointments, ordering corsages and boutonnieres. We are, of course, talking about prom season. It's become a rite of passage for many teens over the years, and for generations now, a staple of TV and movies.
So I was wondering, I don't know if maybe you wanted to, or if not. If you don't want to, you don't have to. I mean, I just wonder if maybe you're going to the prom.
Where'd you get a tux at the last minute?
Oh, just something I had, lying around.
You know what this is? This is us getting ready for the prom.
You know, I've never been to one of these things before. And when I think about how many people wanted this, and how many people cried over it and stuff, I mean, I think everybody looks like royalty tonight.
Well, those were just some prom-related highlights from Something About Mary, 10 Things I Hate About You, Friends, and Mean Girls. And that, of course, is just scratching the surface when it comes to prom-related plot lines. So how did the entire country end up doing this dance each spring? Here to shed some light right now over Zoom is Amy L. Best. She's a professor of sociology at George Mason University and the author of the book Prom Night, Youth, Schools, and Popular Culture. Amy, welcome to the Curiosity Desk.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's so great to be here.
So can we talk a little bit about the origins of the prom? This is one of those things that I think for many people you sort of think, well, it has ever been thus. But of course, it wasn't. It had to start somewhere. How did it start?
Yeah. So what we know from historians is that there's early records in the 1879, I think, was one of the first proms, however, not high school proms, but college proms, which is where they originated in the U.S., in the Northeast. Harvard Crimson reported in, I think it was 1879, was the first time a junior prom was featured. And we also know that proms emerged as an extension of debutante balls. And debutante balls became, I mean, they've been around for a long time, but they really grew and expanded in the U.S. in the 1880s. And with print media, right, suddenly we could actually, everyday folks could see the fancy
gowns and
the fancy frock of the debutante season. in print media, which is something that had not been, was not visible for folks like us.
When it sort of transitions, and you sort of point out in the beginning, this is something that's happened in colleges, and I think, obviously today we think of it as a high school rite of passage. So how does it transition, and is it something that kind of all happened at once, or was it a rolling thing? Did it take time for this to overtake the entire country?
Yeah, such a great question. So we know that by the 1930s, proms were in high schools. And one of the things that's really important to keep in mind is that in 1930, only about 30% of U.S. adults graduated from high school. Today, that number is over 90% of folks graduate from high school. So this idea that proms were then a feature of high school still meant that, in fact, the majority of young folks were not participating in proms. But really, the proms expansion emerged during the post-war period in the 1940s. And there are lots of different forces in play that help us to understand why proms kind of took off to become these big, the big events that they are today.
Yeah, what are some of those forces?
Yeah, so for sure. Okay, so the expansion of schooling, for sure, right? So larger numbers of folks were enrolled in school. Young folks were moving out of the workforce, and school attendance increased, pretty substantially. So we know that. So one of the other really big currents was the expansion of a middle class during the post-war period. We saw industrial expansion in the earlier part of the century, but in the post-war period, we saw, a larger middle class, and then we also saw the expansion of consumer markets, and in particular, consumer markets focused on young people. So teenagers as a term really didn't actually have any meaning until the 1940s, and was really a term that emerged from consumer markets directed toward young folks. They were an untapped niche.
Yeah. You're listening to The Curiosity Desk. We're talking with sociology professor Amy L. Best about the history and evolution of the prom in the United States. I mean, is it fair to look at the prom through the 20th century, or maybe even sort of starting post-World War II, as you point out, where really takes off? Is it a good lens to look at the development or the changes or the evolution or the, just the movement of American culture more broadly? Can we look at proms and how they changed through the second half of the 20th century and say, like, oh, yeah, we can see social change happening in the United States?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that proms are emblematic of broader sets of social and historical changes. And the thing that is so interesting, I've been studying proms now for 20 plus years, and the thing that I find so striking is how resilient proms are. Like, we think that they might go away, but in fact they persist and endure. And part of their persistence is because they are so adaptable. And so they are never were a singular thing. I mean, we could look to the 1940s and the 1950s as a period where the prom was maybe more narrow in its focus. It was a much more of a middle class ritual, and the pomp and circumstance was more uniform. Today, we look at proms, and proms are as varied as the schools that host them. Proms are as diverse as young people are today. Some proms don't even exist in schools. They're occurring as community events outside of proms. We have queer proms. We have all-inclusive proms that serve developmentally disabled young folks. We have adult proms. So it's this like endless proliferation and change that is so interesting, actually, about the prom.
Well, why do you think it's been so resilient? Like, on the one hand, it's sort of interesting that, as you point out, it's able to evolve, but yet we still keep calling it a prom. So there is something it is staying tethered to say we're going to do this completely differently, but it's still a prom. Like, what is the thing about it that is enduring?
Yeah. I mean, so. The prom is an encapsulation of a set of different events. It is something that has persisted cross-generationally. And so, we could think, just as an example, that, parents today and teenagers today, their worlds are often actually quite distinct. And maybe there's been such rapid social change that the prom is one of those things that unifies across time too, right? So parents are invested in proms. And then communities are invested in proms, and proms are these opportunities to memorialize a range of different things. And I'm just thinking about the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas prom after the school shooting in that prom, and that was mobilized as this incredible community event. They had over 100 volunteers, mostly adults, who donated flowers, free hair styling, dresses, everything that really helped to lift it up as this moment of unity. During a period that was actually really, really difficult for an entire community. So there was something like really special in that sense. So I think that's one of the reasons. And, so the parental part, parents can go to, pre-prom events. They can participate in prom dress shopping. I did that with my daughter last year when she was a senior.
Oh, nice.
It was loads of fun.
Yeah.
She tried on a whole bunch of dresses. We were in the dressing room, and there were young folks and their friends and their aunties and their moms. And so there was, something about a cross-generational experience.
You listen to the Curiosity Desk. We're talking with sociology professor Amy L. Best about the history and evolution of the prom. What about the notion of those who are anti-prom, the rejection of the prom as a symbolic choice? I mean, there's certainly an argument out there that, the prom is very gender normative or, very conservative in its essence. And there are folks who say like, hey, that's not always a great thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. So we can look to, just as an example from the 1950s, right? So that was like the height of like heteronormative, gender normative proms, a rigid set of rules about how young men were supposed to comport themselves, how young women should comport themselves, how they should dress, how they should approach each other to ask for a dance, how they should dance. I mean, it was very rigid. It was almost entirely set by middle-class adults who exercised an enormous amount of control over how young people were sort of doing their thing. And then you have, sort of fast forward, the 1960s was a period of really significant youth mobilization and, political protest. Prom certainly fell out of favor during that period. They didn't really make a comeback until the 1980s. And then we saw that. And what we see now is, my dog just came in. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. We like dogs.
What we see
love dogs.
now is, like an endless variation of the prom. And I always think about I guess it was in the 1996, I think, is the MORP, which is prom spelled backwards. It started at Bronx Science, but became this template for, the anti-prom.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to let my dog out again. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Dogs are people too.
Dogs are people too. She often works with me while I'm at my
Are there
desk.
dog proms? Are there pet proms? I bet there are. Bring your pet prom. That has to exist.
I mean, I'm sure that there are lots of proms where folks bring support dogs and support animals to participate in that event. So that wouldn't be surprising at all. And and because proms seem endlessly open to challenge and change, there's lots of ways that, like, to your earlier point and question about young folks who like reject the prom. I mean, there's these outright rejections where they just opt out entirely. And then there's young folks who sees the prom as an occasion to respond to maybe elements of schooling and school control or adults or even sort of racial segregation. I mean, we've seen protest proms, we've seen the formation of freedom schools and alternate proms as a rejection of racial segregation. But we've also seen young folks who, creatively respond to the prom with alternate kinds of dresses, young women wearing pantsuits to the prom as a way to both engage the prom, but also maybe push it forward, stretch it a little bit,
Yeah.
imagine its possibilities. I mean, proms are sort of really these events that are open to this kind of challenge and adaptation.
Really quick before I let you go, one question I really want to ask is, we hear a lot about you're talking about how proms have endured change. Well, we are in an age of social media, unlike anything we've ever seen. Will proms survive the age of social media?
Oh, I suspect actually social media will only serve to further consolidate their importance. And so just think about, as an example, the prom transitions that on TikTok are used, right? So, what was really clear when I was studying the prom, which was I went to a bunch of proms, but now over 2 decades ago.
Yeah.
And it was the lead up events, the post prom events that were part of the prom. The prom has never just been the dance.
Yeah.
And so new media and social media platforms, which help us to chronicle the prom and all that it signifies, whether it's transformation or protest and response or capitulation. Some folks really, really invest in those deeply gendered elements of the prom, and that's part of the excitement and part of the fun for them. But it is, it's recorded and televised in some sense through media. TikTok is one example, and they are really creative. They're really creative videos. I was just watching one of a couple, a heterosexual couple. He's in her dress, she's in his outfit. They do the dress drop, and suddenly he's in the suit and she's in the dress, and it was actually a very sweet video.
Awesome. All right, we've been speaking with sociologist and author Amy L. Best about the history of prom and how it's changed. Thank you so much for being with us on the Curiosity Desk.
My pleasure.
Stay with us. Up next, the hosts of Away with Words are back to answer a few of your linguistic listener questions. We promise it's going to be wicked pissa. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. This is the Curiosity Desk. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Curiosity Desk, and today is our GBH membership drive. If you enjoy listening to Edgar and his crew as they dive into your most curious questions, consider making a contribution today. Any amount, whether it be $5, $10, or $50, supports our mission to bring you down-to-earth and interesting conversations. Enhance your own curiosity every day when you call 888-897-9424 or when you visit gbhnews.org. That's 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
888-897-9424 is the number. gbhnews.org is the website. This is the Curiosity Desk. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III in studio with the one and only Patty Daniels from GBH News.
Edgar, big Monday. We've got a dollar for dollar match going on all day long on the pledge drive, but you're listening right now, so now is the time to give. Every dollar you give will be matched by a generous group of supporters from the Beacon Circle, a dollar for dollar match. Supercharge, double charge your giving and your support for GBH News.
Your gift on steroids. And hey, just because we're in a dollar for dollar match, that does not mean we don't have ways to thank you. We do both at the same. We can chew and we can walk and chew gum at the same time, although we can't say that, apparently. Yes, if you support GBH right now at $10 a month as a sustainer, we can thank you with the GBH 89.7 tote bag. There is perhaps no better gift that says public radio than a tote bag. That is what we are going to thank you with right now if you make that contribution of $10 a month. Now, by the way, because we're in a dollar for dollar match, that $10 a month is going to be doubled every month for the year. So your $10 a month right now, we thank you with the tote bag, and you have $240 worth of impact this year on the station. It's a win-win. 888-897-9424 is the number, or gbhnews.org.
A couple folks who've already pledged: Pamela in Halifax, Jerry Ann in South Milwaukee, and Joanne in Cambridge says, I love knowing that I can get the news from GBH, and I love the Curiosity Desk. Thank you so much for those pledges, for those comments. Supercharge your giving today, a dollar for dollar pledge. 888-897-9424. Give online at gbhnews.org, and thank you.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. I am Edgar B. Herwick III. Now, we love getting your listener questions, and we are always getting listener questions about words and language, why we use the words we do, why we use them the way we do. So right now, returning to the Curiosity Desk via Zoom to help us answer a couple of your recent etymological asks are Grant Barrett, a lexicographer and linguist, and Martha Barnett, author and journalist. Together, they host the weekly radio show and podcast Away with Words. It's heard on public radio stations all across the country. Hello, Grant and Martha. Welcome back to the Curiosity Desk.
Hello.
Hey, Edgar.
We're going to jump right into things here. We got a little tape with Bill from Chelmsford asking his question of the Curiosity Desk.
I have a question about an old saying that has been floating around my family for a long time. Deaf as a haddock. And I'm wondering where that comes from. Very curious about that. Thanks.
All right, last time we talked, I think we took on dead as a doornail, and now so I see your dead as a doornail answers, and I raise you deaf as a haddock. Take it away.
Well, yeah, deaf as a haddock means very deaf, but haddocks actually aren't deaf. They make all sorts of clicks and hums to communicate with each other. Yeah, but what's weird is that fishermen used to believe that haddock were stone deaf, and it's not clear why, except there is a lot of folklore out there about how the devil made the haddock deaf because he got mad at the fish when it stole his bait, and he started yelling at the fish and saying, "I'll tackle thee," and that left the fish deaf. Yeah, there's another use of it a very old use in print where it says "deave as a haddock in chongy weather," meaning deaf as a haddock in unsettled weather. So it might have to do with the changeable weather that got cut off in that saying. Sort of like we say "happy as a clam," and the original is "happy as a clam at high tide."
Oh. Very
That's
nice.
why clams are happy.
I love those sayings where like the back end of the saying has been lopped off, the ones that we've shortened, when you learn the sort of full length of the saying. And sometimes it changes the meanings of the sayings,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, proof is in the pudding.
Grant, you got anything on deaf as a haddock for us?
Just to put some dates on it, the saying is centuries old in the UK, dating back to the 1700s. And it's been in the US since the early 1800s. And, once haddock became a common comparison for hearing, it also started showing up in other expressions like dead as a haddock or cold as a haddock or dumb as a haddock, which could either be stupid or not being able to speak, mute. So haddock just kind of became this comparison animal because there was a time, as people in Boston know, where fishing and fishermen were like the people, and haddock was a very common creature that you might just think about any given day.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is it the fact that this is a coastal area of the country, the fact that the fishing industry has loomed large in New England for a long time, does that make it more likely that a saying like this is going to hold on in this part of the country maybe longer than it would in other places? Is that kind of generally how language sometimes works?
Yeah, definitely in Boston, all up along the New England coast, well into the Maritimes of Canada. And there's also a second factor here, which is the stuff that happens in England has always had a stronger tie with the New England part of the United States than with the rest of the United States. So if something is common in England or in the United Kingdom, there's a really good chance that it's going to be a little stronger in New England.
Excellent stuff. All right, we're going to go to our next question. This comes from Janet Qualia in Barre, Massachusetts. Janet asks, why do we speak of, quote, the crack of dawn when I've neither seen nor heard dawn crack?
Well, the earlier form is crack of day. And the whole idea is what you might imagine, the sun peering through that crack in the darkness. You have the night sky above and the black land below. And there's this little moment where the eye of the sun peers in between those. And the word crack is also doing double duty because it can also mean a sudden sharp noise. And it reinforces that idea of some kind kind of change taking place. You know, if you've ever waited for the sun to rise, you know, it's this weird feeling where things don't seem to be happening, and then they're moving very slowly, and then suddenly it's daytime, and that's part of the crack too.
There are some synonyms, break of day and daybreak and break
Yeah.
of dawn.
Yeah.
And again, we get this notion of something splitting or a separation, and what used to be an even surface has now got something happening in the middle of it. And so it's really just just a metaphor for the physical world, for this less physical, insubstantial moment where the sun passes the horizon.
I think my favorite phrase is a peep of day. In the 16th century, you would talk about the peep of day.
Well, you know what mine is, Martha? It's the Australian word for it, which is when you talk about John being at sparrow farts.
Wait, whoa. You can't just give us a little more on that, Grant. What are you talking
presumably
about?
it's the moment when the sparrow first gets up, and like the rest of us, when we first get up, we're scratching and yawning and passing a little wind. So
And so wait, what is the saying in Australia?
sparrow fart. Yeah. I got up
Sparrow
at sparrow fart this morning. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing.
And I did.
You're listening to The Curiosity Desk. We've got Grant, Barrett, and Martha Barnett from Away with Words. We're answering some of your recent questions about language and words. We've got one more for you today. This comes from Jay Swain in Boston. Jay, take it away.
Hey there, Curiosity Desk. What is the etymology of wicked pissa? Thanks.
There we go. I mean, you want to talk about quintessential New England phrases. We're throwing one right at you two. Wicked pissa.
Oh yeah.
What do you got for us?
Absolutely. Leaving the R sound off the end in that classic New England way of talking. Really, Edgar, we've got to talk about this as three separate terms, because there's a lot happening here. I'm going to make this as short as I can, but pisser, dating back to the 1800s, pisser with the R, originally referred to the human urinating apparatus, so to speak, the way that we
the old
micturate.
pisser.
Yeah, but by the 1930s, it could also mean urinals or any other device that you might urinate into. But then by the 1950s, it took on these positive and negative connotations kind of all at once, and started mainly to be used for emphasis. And this is something that happens with slang, where the older meanings fade, in this case, the older, crasser meanings, and then the new meaning is really meaning. It's just about emphasis. And so there was this kind of post-war American prudery that appeared, and this earlier kind of crass stuff disappeared, and what's left was what's called semantic force, this punchy feeling. It has very little to do with the bodily functions, a lot more to do about the wham and the bam and the emphasis of it. So then we get wicked so we've handled pisser, right? Let's deal with wicked. Now, wicked meaning evil or sinful kind of goes back to Old English ideas of sorcerers and sorcery. But we get these figurative uses of it kind of also as an emphatic role by the 1860s in the United Kingdom, and then by the 1920s in the US. And it wasn't then particularly a New England or a Boston thing.
Really?
Yeah, but by the 1980s, a couple interesting things happened. One, wicked was far more used in the United Kingdom than it was in the US. I mean, it just appears everywhere all at once. But then it burns out, and it kind of fell out of use almost everywhere except in New England and Boston. And it became what linguists call enregistered. It's kind of, I call them Chamber of Commerce words, where they're fixed in your minds and your hearts as belonging to the region. It's part of your identity.
It somehow becomes grafted onto the culture.
Exactly. So you kind of keep it alive through this conscious use and this overt kind of production.
How did they become sort of paired together?
Well, it's a great combination of both words that sort of emphasize each other, right? I mean, and that's a really American thing. Our slang tends to be emphatic and hyperbolic, and wicked pissa is just a wonderful example of both of those things. Wicked pissa.
But one surprising thing is that many people are under the impression that wicked pissa used in this way is really old.
It does, right. It feels like it's old-timey in some way,
I mean,
right?
it's 40 years old. The earliest use that I know of in print is from the Boston Phoenix in 1980. And it's probably older than that, because it takes a while for stuff to go from being spoken to appearing in print. But still, that's not that old when you think about it. It seems so essential to the regional identity. So it's much newer than most people would think.
But there's something about, I mean, it is not just with language, but is, I find with a lot of cultural things in general, there is this, they work oftentimes because they seem to be old timey, but then when you really dig into it, they're not. It's just, there is something very powerful about evoking a sense of something that has been around for a long time, even if it hasn't.
Well, the reverse is also true, which is often the younger generation gets this idea that the slang that they have is brand new and just manufactured and just came off out of the plant. And a lot of times it's old. My favorite example is when Legit had a comeback, and you had to tell them that the Gen Xers had already used it for quite a while before it was picked up by the millennials.
It's true. MC Hammer, as we all know, was too legit to quit.
Absolutely. And even more common slang that's not really attached to generations, but like crib from hip hop, meaning your home. Well, there are versions of that to the 1600s.
Wow.
Yeah, and everything is pretty much old. A lot of times it's older than you think it is. So people will write to the Away with Words and say, "Oh, I was watching, Bridgerton, and they were using this language. It seemed so anachronistic." And like, well, the truth is, it actually is that old. And then the scriptwriter's got it right. Yeah.
Excellent stuff. We've been speaking with Grant Barrett and Martha Barnett from the radio show and podcast Away with Words. Grant, Martha, it has been, as it always is, a joy. Thank you for being with us again on the Curiosity Desk.
It's been wicked pissa.
And that just about does it for us for now. Stick around for the Culture Show coming up next. Our thanks to the incomparable Curiosity Desk crew and all the folks on the production team that make this show happen today. We will be right back here in 23 short hours on GBH 89.7 and streaming live on YouTube. If you cannot wait that long, we do have a podcast version of the show. You can check it out wherever it is you get your podcasts. Until next time, I am Edgar B. Herwick III, and I hope you will stay curious out there.
This is the GBH Spring Membership Drive. We are asking you to start a monthly sustaining membership to help fund the future of GBH. If you are already support the station, we thank you and ask that you increase your current giving if possible. Together, we can ensure this valued community service stays on the air, online, and freely available to all. Please give at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424. I'm Kiki Law, joined here with Sam Derringer.
And the dollar for dollar match is going on, but only for about 4 more minutes. Make a monthly sustaining gift and it will be matched. A one-time gift of $500 or $1,000 will also be matched. Where's this extra money coming from? A generous group of Beacon Circle patrons. We really appreciate their support here during this membership drive. So please help to earn every matching dollar before time runs out. That's right, about 4 more minutes left to get your gift match. gbhnews.org or when you call 888-897-9424.
And support GBH and pick up our GBH tote as a thank you. The tote features the statement, "Public radio is a beacon of the free press," along with a purple and yellow old-style lantern that pops against the natural cotton tote. Sign up as a sustaining member to GBH at just $10 a month and ask for the tote bag at gbhnews.org or by calling us at 888-897-9424.
Radio news is a special medium. Unlike TV, we don't give you the pictures that go with the news stories. We give you the sounds. And that can be so much better because you can see the story in your mind's eye. The reporters you hear today are more than just good reporters. They know how to use sound to paint a picture and tell the story. The result is insight and context you can only find on public radio. It's what makes GBH worth listening to and worth supporting. And now is a great time to support GBH when you go to gbhnews.org or when you call 888-897-9424.
And the other reason it's a great time to give right now is because there is a dollar for dollar match going on, but only for the next few minutes, the last few minutes of the Curiosity Desk. Make a monthly sustaining gift and it will be matched. A one-time gift of $500 or $1,000 will also be matched. The extra money is being donated by a generous group of Beacon Circle patrons. Please help us to earn every single matching dollar before time runs out. Just a few more minutes left in the hour, a few more minutes to make your gift. 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
So why give right now? Because there will never be a better time. After all, you might think there will be. It's easy to imagine that you will have the luxury of a few extra minutes to support GBH. The reality is you're probably always busy with something, so please make the time now. We promise the experience will be quick and easy. Don't forget about that dollar for dollar match going on for the next minute and a half here. Get your gift match dollar for dollar when you go to gbhnews.org or when you call 888-897-9424, and thank you.
What's trending? Show next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and the Cape Cod Foundation, committed to building resources to support community life on Cape Cod, including environmental conservation, arts and culture, and community development. Learn more at capecodfoundation.org.
And Bryant University, built around learning by doing since 1863, helping students gain AI fluency and confidence employers demand with labs, industry partnerships, and more. Bryant.edu.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?